Chapter 252. All right, remember to be careful. Dongfang Yu urged. Traces of confusion and surprise appeared in Lu Qinyue's eyes. Dongfang Yu seemed to be especially concerned about Bailey Hongzhuang. Were they really just teammates? She had known Dongfang Yu for a very long time. Although he always treated others politely, this was the first time she saw him so concerned and considerate. She instinctively sensed something was different. Take care. An apathetic voice was suddenly heard. Traces of concern were faintly visible in Gong Xiaoqing's pitch-black pupils. Armored rhinoceros wasn't even easy for him to deal with, never mind a newcomer like Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang was flabbergasted before a confident smile slowly spread across her face. She really didn't expect that Gong Xiaoqing would also caution her. I will. A smile as bright as the sun burst on Bailey Hongzhuang's perfectly delicate, beautiful face. 100 flowers seemed to bloom in that split second, creating an incomparable beauty. Bailey Hongzhuang unsheathed her translucent, blue sword. Her figure seemed just like a cheetah, a swish sounding as she ran. In the blink of an eye, she was already behind the armored rhinoceros. A trace of surprise flicked in Gong Xiaoqing's eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang's speed wasn't simple. Ding! Bailey Hongzhuang didn't waste any time, the spirit power within her body rushing forth into the blade, causing it to release a faint glow. She brandished the ice-chilling sword, ruthlessly stabbing it towards the armored rhinoceros' soft underbelly. All demonic beasts had weaknesses. Armored rhinoceros had a hard outer shell. Trying to break through its defense wasn't at all easy. By attacking its weak point, you could get twice the effect with half the effort. You could only hear the subtle sounds of a sword piercing skin before a heaven-shakingly loud roar sounded from the armored rhinoceros. Roar! The armored rhinoceros hadn't expected for somebody to suddenly attack it. A burst of pain came from its belly before it could even notice somebody was there. Under the fierce pain, the armored rhinoceros seemed to go mad as it charged rapidly at Bailey Hongzhuang. Rumble! The huge body seemed just like a cannonball as it charged with heaven-shaking momentum. Its bloody mouth was opened wide like a sacrificial bowl, dense, cold air coming out from its needle-sharp teeth, cruel and bloody. Woo! The armored rhinoceros opened its mouth to bite at Bailey Hongzhuang. If Bailey Hongzhuang were to be bitten, her entire body would be completely mutilated. But Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were calm from beginning to end. Even though she was facing such a crisis, her delicate face wasn't the least bit panicked. Bailey Hongzhuang's speed grew even faster as she rushed straight at the armored rhinoceros. Seeing this, Gong Xiaoqing and the rest were all stunned. What was Bailey Hongzhuang doing? Hongzhuang won't be in danger, will she? Lu Qinyue's clear eyes flashed with worry. Bailey Hongzhuang's move was truly past what they had anticipated. Gong Xiaoqing frowned as he gathered his spirit power, prepared to rush out and rescue Bailey Hongzhuang. The instant Bailey Hongzhuang and the armored rhinoceros were about to collide, her figure suddenly twisted away, slipping past its body like a fish. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang was no longer there, the armored rhinoceros continued to charge. It couldn't stop. Bailey Hongzhuang grabbed the opportunity. Her body tightly slid past the armored rhino as she waved her sword. The ice-chilling sword flew through the air as the subtle sound of sword-piercing flesh once again echoed in the air, causing the armored rhino's blood to gush out violently. Roar! The armored rhinoceros roared even more wildly. Its black eyes were tinged red as it charged even more madly at Bailey Hongzhuang. Chapter 253. The Armored Rhinoceros is Furious. Gong Xiaoqing's voice was downcast. A haze covered his cold and indifferent eyes, hiding what was under so nobody could see. Bailey Hongzhuang already managed to seriously wound the armored rhinoceros with only 2 strokes of her sword. Whether it's strength or mentality, there are no flaws at all. Dongfang Yu's graceful, handsome face was filled with admiration. It was very rare for a new student to give such a performance on their first time out. After an armored rhinoceros's strength bursts out, It isn't easy to deal with it. Lu Qinyue's voice was tender as if water, her dainty, delicate face unreadable. I think that no matter what it is, Bailey Hongzhuang will be able to handle it. Dongfang Yu smiled confidently. He could see that even facing the armored rhinoceros fury, Bailey Hongzhuang was still calm and indifferent, her eyes undisturbed without the slightest wave. She wasn't all panicked. Rumble! The armored rhinoceros charged forward. Bailey Hongzhuang sheathed her sword and once again faced it head-on. This time, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't slip by, but instead jumped up into midair. Her figure flipped over, landing steadily on its back. Her movements were neat and tidy as if it was second nature. It was just like she already knew what would happen. Her carefulness was worthy of admiration. The armored rhino didn't think that this repulsive human would crawl onto its back and frantically shook its body, wanting to throw Bailey Hongzhuang off. But no matter how the armored rhinoceros moved and twisted, Bailey Hongzhuang was stuck on its back. Right now, the fastest way to defeat it was to attack the armored rhino's back. But this time, the mission was to bring back the rhino's intact leather, so Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't. The spirit power in her body rushed forth as her middle stage mysterious Ian strength burst out. Bailey Hongzhuang gathered her spirit power in her right hand, giving out a dazzling light. Storm Cleaver. Bailey Hongzhuang shouted coldly. The berserk, endless strength in her first, ruthlessly pounding on the armored rhino. Bang! A dull noise sounded as a heavy object fell to the ground. Equals the armored rhinoceros toppled over with a loud bang, its big eyes slowly losing light. Dongfang Yu and the rest were all astonished. They never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be able to kill the armored rhinoceros so cleanly and efficiently. Originally, they had thought that even if Bailey Honghound was strong enough to defeat the armored rhinoceros, their fight would definitely be at least dangerous. But Bailey Hongzhuang's fight was smooth and natural, without the least bit of flaw. Gong Xiaoqing's eyes flickered. Bailey Hongzhuang's fight didn't seem one bit like a shaky novice's. All her responses to the armored rhino were clear and logical, nimbly attacking its weak points. Everything was methodically arranged as if she had lived a life secluded in the mountains. Bailey Hongzhuang easily took out the armored rhino's demonic core. But before Dongfang Yu and the others could congratulate Bailey Hongzhuang, an enormous figure charged at Bailey Hongzhuang like lightning. A heavy shadow covered Bailey Hongzhuang. She raised her eyes and saw another armored rhinoceros facing the one she had just killed. Be careful, Dongfang Yu cried in alarm. His gentle and soft, handsome face was filled with worry, but they were too far. The armored rhinoceros' arrival was too sudden. There wasn't enough time to save her. Chapter 254 Swish. A fine and powerful sword swept by, startling everyone. Shadowless kill. Bailey Hongzhuang's figure curled into a spin before directly rolling onto the armored rhinoceros's body. In that split second, the armored rhinoceros's belly was split open, blood spraying everywhere. Bailey Hongzhuang even then took advantage of the lighting to extract the armored rhino's demonic core. Thump! Another armored rhinoceros fell to the ground. It had only appeared for a few seconds before dying. Gong Xiaoqing, Dongfang Yu, and Lu Qinyue rushed to Bailey Hongzhuang's side only to see her matchlessly beautiful face calm and indifferent as if it was normal, her black eyes light like water, without the slightest hint of panic. Dark red blood was smeared on her beautifully exquisite face, only increasing her charm and allure. Together with her blazing red clothes, she seemed just like a beautiful evil spirit bewitching the world. A shocked color flitted past Dongfang Yu's eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang's beauty was almost earth-shaking. A single glance was unforgettable. Bailey Hongzhuang, your battle was breathtaking. Hongzhuang, your skills aren't like a newbie's at all. It looks like our worry was meaningless. Lu Qinyue smiled, her voice gentle and mellow. Gong Xiaoqing inspected Bailey Hongzhuang and didn't speak, but instead looked at her meaningfully. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips quirked into a small smile. She wasn't prepared to hide anything. After all, she'll be working with this team in the future. Even though her performance didn't match the amount of experience her identity should have, it didn't matter. Because almost nobody would ever think that she wasn't the real Bailey Hongzhuang. The leather's in perfect condition. You've completed the mission even better than required. Gong Xiaoqing looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, his indifferent voice a little less cold. Dongfang Yu's coquettish eyes had a stunningly beautiful smile to them. It looks like our originally small team of ours got another demonic little helper. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled, helping Dongfang Yu and the others disassemble the armored rhinoceros. The most valuable part of the armored rhinoceros was its leather. The leather could be used to make very powerful armors, so it was a favorite for many cultivators. But while the four were cutting apart the leather, an untimely voice was suddenly heard. Gong Xiaoqing, Dongfang Yu, what a coincidence to meet again. The rude and frivolous voice was filled with provocation and hate, obviously filled with bad intentions. Gong Xiaoqing and Dongfang Yu's eyes changed when they heard the voice. Yihuqing. Gong Xiaoqing's originally frosty face became even colder, a blizzard seeming to appear in his pitch-black pupils. His whole body seemed to emit ice. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyes to look the newcomers. There were 4 of them, all about 18 years old. They were led by a yellow dress man. His long black hair was kept high up with goat slick, and his face was dashingly handsome. In the Ross, technically means that he looked anorexically handsome, but I'm assuming the author made a mistake and meant, which means dashingly handsome. His eyes seemed sharp and ruthless like a hawk, his eagle-like nose only adding evil air. His thin, pale lips were pulled into a cruel sneer. One look was enough to know that this guy was born cruel and unreasonable. Not only Yihuqing, but the 3 cultivators behind him also reeked of blood and had an aura of death around them. With Bailey Hongzhuang's experience, she knew that the blood on these 4's hands wasn't small at all. Haha, truly enemies on a narrow road. Yihuqing smiled faintly, his eyes cold and vicious as he stared at Gong Xiaoqing and Dongfang Yu. The depths of his pupils hid his extreme envy and resentment. Chapter 255. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her brows. It seems like there's a pretty big grudge between their team and Yihuqing's. Yihuqing, what do you want now? Dongfang Yu's normally graceful and gentle appearance was now like ice, his deep, dark eyes filled with disgust. What do I want now? Yihuqing smiled, his eyes slowly turning dark. That armored rhinoceros is now mine. Dongfang Yu sneered. You're dreaming. I'm dreaming. Yihuqing's smile slowly widened. If you don't hand it over, we'll just beat you up. Plus, you have 2 women. Be careful, ah. After all, my brothers here would be happy to ravage the flowers. In line with Yihuqing's words, the 3 men behind him all stared at Bailey Hongzhuang and Lu Qingyue, filled with interest. Yihuqing's eyes lit up. I didn't think that Azure Water School would actually get another beauty I haven't seen before. He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang frivolously, not trying to hide the lust in his eyes at all. Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes that were clear like water was filled with distaste and contempt. Yihuqing's stare only made her disgusted. Where do you think you're looking? There was a clear warning in her cold voice. She hated these sort of annoying and shameless guys the most. LOL, isn't D-Bay Chen also annoying and shameless? 3. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's rude warning, Yihuqing actually smiled instead of getting angry. Compared to that whore, Li Qingyue, this little beauty seems to have a lot more than that gentle-as-water personality. Hearing that, Lu Qingyue's elegant, dainty face turned pale. Her figure trembled slightly as if she had suffered a huge blow. Bailey Hongzhuang felt a burst of astonishment. Anyone who saw Lu Qingyue would immediately take her for a goddess, so for Yihuqing to call her a whore was truly surprising. For Lu Qingyue to be this panicked, there was clearly some history behind them. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was still a bit unconvinced. With Gong Xiaoqing and his group status in Azure Water School, who would dare to be so hostile? Yihuqing and his group obviously weren't Azure Water School students, but then otherwise, why would he have history with them? Master, That annoying guy's strength is comparable to Gong Xiaoqing's. Little White called out. Her phoenix eyes suddenly narrowed, a trace of understanding flitting by as Bailey Hongzhuang instantly realized something. A faint possibility floated into her mind. Maybe these four people were former students of Azure Water School. After all, to have that much strength at such a young age, they could be considered as cultivation geniuses, absolutely not like ordinary rich prodigal sons. Yi Huqing, don't look for trouble. Gong Xiaoqing's voice was sinisterly cold, his dark, pitch-black pupils like ice as a trace of killing intent slowly grew. I'm looking for trouble. What can you do about it? Yi Huqing's smile suddenly grew icy, resentment and hatred burning in his eyes. Gong Xiaoqing, you made me fall into this situation, so do you really think that I'd give you an easy time? You brought it upon yourself. You deserve to be driven away from the school. Dongfang Yu's voice was cold and decisive, the icy color of his eyes below freezing. Huh? Yi Huqing walked towards Dongfang Yu. I deserve it? Yi Huqing suddenly raised his voice, his pitch-black pupils seeming to go mad. If it wasn't for that whore, how could I have become like this? All of this, everything is because of you guys. Yi Huqing's veins protruded. As long as Yi Huqing is alive, I will not let you guys have a peaceful life. Chapter 256. Lu Qinyue's face grew even paler, her small, dainty face losing all its blood. Her eyes that were always tranquil like water was now filled with panic and fear as the fog in her eyes grew, like raindrops on a pear blossom. It was truly a pitiful sight. Raindrops on a pear blossom is an idiom meaning tear-stained face of a beauty. Could it be a love triangle? Bailey Hongzhuang rubbed her chin. Although none of them specifically said what had happened, she could faintly guess a few things. A femme fatale. As Azure Water School's #1 beauty, Lu Qinyue was extremely beautiful. But Yi Huqing loved Lu Qinyue immediately and followed her, before finally being expelled from Azure Water School. But the punishment seemed too harsh. There was definitely more to the story. Little Black thought and nodded. This show probably has a lot of things worth watching. Master, me watch. Inside the primordial chaos ring, Baisher shook its fluffy little head, his watery eyes filled with want. Little Black and Little White were both watching outside, so he was the only one inside the ring. He was just about to die out of boredom. Bailey Hongzhuang held her forehead. Why do demonic beasts seem to like watching shows so much? Master, want to see? Baisher whined, tears instantly filling his watery eyes. His appearance was extremely pitiful. Bailey Hongzhuang felt a burst of helplessness. Baisher really was quite pitiful, spending almost all of his days inside the primordial chaos ring. Now isn't the time to come out. Let's wait until this is over first. Baisher clearly wanted to leave the primordial chaos ring immediately, but hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's serious words, he could only obediently nod his little head. Either you leave us the leather, or we fight. But the consequences? Think about it thoroughly. Yi Huqing's lips curled into a cold smile, staring icily at Lu Qinyue. His love gave birth to his hate. The leather's ours. Gong Xiaoqing's face was indifferent. Yi Huqing, leave now and I'll pretend nothing just happened. Gong Xiaoqing, spare me your high and mighty attitude. In front of others it's fine, but in front of me, what qualifications do you have? An arrogant tone is full of disdain and disgust. A loathful, full face cannot surpass Gong Xiaoqing's calm appearance. He just doesn't understand how can this cold and distant ice mountain face make anyone like him. Yi Huqing, you should not go too far with this, said Lu Qinyue with a slight tremble. Her soft and beautiful face showed a sense of seriousness. Lu Qinyue, before I have always thought of you as a goddess. Now, you are worthless in my eyes. You better hope to God that you do not fall in my hands. Otherwise, I will let you neither live nor die. The words burst out from his mouth. That appearance making one gnashing own teeth has already made him hate Lu Qinyue down to his bones. Thinking back to before, Yi Huqing was high-spirited and vigorous. Being a special recruit student, He was the shining star. Even when compared to Gong Xiaoqing, they seemed to be equally strong. However, because of Lu Qingyue, this slut, all of his future and potential was destroyed. Even his name was smeared. How can he not hate her? If you will not give up, then we can only fight. Yihuchen's mouth raised up. He looked highly arrogant, but his expression slowly gained some seriousness. The cruelness in his bones completely exploded. At this moment, the original temper disappeared in a flash. Without that wild energy, it revealed Azure Water School's true posture. The strength of a mysterious Ian middle stage burst open. A sharp, large sword appeared in his hand, then quickly flashed by. An ice-cold and firm light was dispersed. Chapter 257. Gong Xiaoqing's expression stayed the same. He grasped his long sword, its ice-cold aura radiating through the air. In an instant, it seemed as if his entire being became a sword, sharp and penetrating. Ding, ding, ding. The two didn't even hesitate at all. The instant they grabbed their weapons, they started attacking each other. Their fiery fury surrounded them as their swords clanged and ferociously attacked each other. Their bodies were like tornadoes, their movements fierce and mean, yet as they whirled around each other, it was as if they weren't willing to part. Yihuqing's three friends also charged towards Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two. Since the fight had already started, then why not make it a group fight? Dongfang Yu narrowed his peach blossom eyes as a sharp and dangerous light quietly flashed his eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang, Lu Qingyue, in this group of three, there is one that's at the mysterious heaven initial stage. I'll take care of him. The other two are mysterious Yuan late stage. You two should try with all your effort to delay them for a period of time. I will try to resolve everything as quickly as possible. Lu Qingyue was also at the mysterious Yuan late stage and was equally matched with the other side. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's strength was a little weaker, so it would be dangerous for her. Dongfang, I understand. Lu Qingyue took out her weapon, and a guarded expression appeared on her face. Bailey Hongzhuang, you have to be extra careful. If you can't fight them directly, then try to find a way to stall for time. Dongfang Yu turned his head towards Bailey Hongzhuang and warned her. His handsome face was filled with concern and anxiety. The resentment between Yihuqing and them was very old. It had long since turned into a full-on fight rather than touching on something and then ignoring it. The corner of Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth raised slightly. Her delicate and flawlessly beautiful face did not show a trace of anxiety or nervousness. Relax, I can handle myself. As the Grand Master of an aristocratic family, what type of dangers had she never seen? A mysterious Yuan late-stage cultivator couldn't shock her and make her scared. Looking at those pitch-black, limpid phoenix eyes that were filled with self-confidence and firmness, Dongfang Yu slightly nodded his head, his heart finally settling down somewhat. Immediately, he jumped into battle. Meanwhile, Lu Qingyue was already facing one of the men. Beauty, you're so pretty that I almost can't even bear to lay a hand on you. The frivolous voice was filled with bad intentions as Chu Haicheng laughed, looking at Bailey Hongzhuang teasingly. You're only at the middle stage of mysterious Ian. You're simply not my opponent. It'd be better for you to become my woman than to let your skin and flesh suffer. Don't you think? Chu Haicheng looked as if he was about to drool. Lu Qingyue was Yihuqing's, so naturally, he didn't dare have any thoughts about her. But this woman in front of him didn't lose out to Lu Qingyue in the least. She was truly a rare beauty. He almost didn't have the heart to destroy the flower. Bailey Hongzhuang's bright, pitch-black pupils were mocking as she looked disdainfully at the content man in front of her. Her long, shapely brows raised as she spoke, her tone cold and scornful. You, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled bewitchingly. Why don't you piss a pool of water to see what you look like first? Her cold voice was insolent and haughty. Chu Haicheng simply wasn't even in her eyes. It was as if just looking at Chu Haicheng would dirty her eyes. This guy, she didn't care about at all. She stood arrogantly in front of Chu Haicheng. His originally smiling face could no longer smile as his lips twitched. A wave of anger sweeping through his eyes. Woman, you're refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Bailey Hongzhuang was calm and indifferent against his threat. How? Bailey Hongzhuang's arrogance was clearly shown in her one-word reply. He was only a little first-level cultivator. What qualifications did he have to speak? Chu Haicheng clearly understood that Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude wasn't the least bit gentle. Since this woman actually provoked his dignity, he didn't mind teaching Bailey Hongzhuang the gap between them. Chapter 258, Chu Haicheng suddenly stepped forward. Strong spirit power burst out as his fist cut through the air, ruthlessly attacking Bailey Hongzhuang's face. His quick and agile fist made a whistling sound as it flew, filled with strength. Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly felt a sharp, knife-like burst of pain on her face. But her eyes were firm as she slid away, moving like a shadow. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang slide away, just like a demon, Chu Haicheng looked at his punch that was just about to hit Bailey Hongzhuang, the smile on his mouth fading when he realized that she was already no longer there. Storm Cleaver. Bailey Hongzhuang's attack had no hesitation, appearing behind Chu Haicheng like lightning, her martial skill ruthlessly striking at Chu Haicheng's back. Bang! A dull sound rang in the air. Chu Haicheng seemed just like a toad, falling flat on his face like a dog eating feces. Bailey Hongzhuang stood in her original position, a confident smile on her beautiful, clear, cold face. Rays of sunlight danced on her body, making her look even nobler in the dust, as if she would ride the wind back at any time. Chu Haicheng's face was extremely ugly. He never thought that he'd be beaten to the ground by such a weak-looking little girl. If this was spread around, he'd definitely lose all his face. Dongfang Yu and the others who were fighting had also noticed, their faces turning shocked. They originally thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would only be able to stall Chu Haicheng, and wounding him a bit would already be very good. But they hadn't thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would even be able to get the upper hand in the fight as well. Chu Haicheng's face was boiling. Letting this weak little girl knock him down really was too embarrassing. Yi Huqing frowned, his black eyes filled with disgust and contempt. His voice was as cold as ice. Trash. Getting beaten to the ground by a weak little girl with his strength. What could he be but trash? Chu Haicheng's face was extremely unsightly. Bailey Hongzhuang's attack just now wasn't soft at all, a piercing pain stabbing at his body. He was already injured. You're courting death. Chu Haicheng almost bit off his gums. His originally soft-hearted feelings had completely disappeared, replaced by a bone-deep hatred towards Bailey Hongzhuang. Do you have the strength? Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was cold. This guy shouldn't have thought about her like that earlier. Otherwise, he would have to pay the price. Chu Haicheng snorted coldly, no longer arguing with Bailey Hongzhuang. His figure suddenly moved, a long sword now in his hands. He brandished it, sword aura attacking madly at Bailey Hongzhuang's vital parts. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes sharpened. The ice-chilling sword appeared in her hands, dancing wildly in the wind, blocking the slivers of sword aura. Without the slightest intention of retreating, she charged directly at Chu Haicheng, seeing Bailey Hongzhuang charge at him without any fear. Chu Haicheng's heart sneered. Earlier, he was only careless. Did Bailey Hongzhuang really think of him as trash? Ding, ding, ding. The two swords fought, the sounds of gold and iron clashing echoing in the air. But after, Chu Haicheng's face changed a bit. Bailey Hongzhuang was actually strong enough to fight him head-on? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes narrowed. She had to begin cultivating her body for martial skills as soon as possible. Only by getting stronger can she bypass levels and defeat somebody with a higher cultivation than her. Shadowless kill. The spirit power in her body poured out madly into the ice-chilling sword, making the azure sword glow brilliantly. It was filled with powerful and terrifying strength. Chapter 259, Chu Haicheng's face changed. He could clearly sense a threat from Bailey Hongzhuang's attack. This was a high-grade yellow martial skill. Bailey Hongzhuang had only just entered Azure Water School, but had actually already gotten a high-grade yellow martial skill. It must be known that wielding a high-grade yellow martial skill at the middle stage of Mysterious Ian wasn't easy at all. Plus, getting a high-grade yellow martial skill was also extremely difficult. Flaming Cloud Sword. Chu Hai-chung didn't dare to be careless, fully using his middle-grade yellow martial skill to face Bailey Hongzhuang head-on. Ding! The two blades locked in the air, colliding with each other fiercely. The two skills interweaved, continuously eating up the other's energy. They were almost evenly matched. Chu Hai-cheng's face had already changed into a deep, purple hue. His strength was higher than Bailey Hongzhuang's, but Bailey Hongzhuang's martial skill was stronger than his. So, the situation had turned out like this. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips formed an enchanting smile. The contrast in her bright, red clothes made her seem like an evil spirit, emitting astonishing charm. Chu Hai-chung took note of Bailey Hongzhuang's thoughtful smile. He didn't know why, but his heart suddenly had a bad premonition. In a flash, the blue sword drained the red sword's energy, once again attacking Chu Hai-chung. Although it was far weaker than before, it still couldn't be underestimated. Chu Hai-chung hadn't thought that she would be so tenacious, and by the time he reacted and wanted to block, it was already too late. He could only turn around and escape, intending to hide from the attack. But in the end, he was still slower than the sword. His figure flew, his left shoulder drenched in blood. Chu Hai-chung screamed. His left arm had almost been chopped in half by her sword. Chu Hai-cheng's face was deathly pale, staring at Bailey Hongzhuang in terror. He really couldn't believe that this little girl at the middle stage of Mysterious Ian could actually wound him to this extent. Her moves were strategic and ruthless. He knew his own strength, but in front of Bailey Hongzhuang, he felt that he was too weak. That disdainful gaze of hers made him panic. It was as if she was a king, and anyone before her could only bow their heads. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked in front of Chu Hai-chung, a mocking smile on her quiet and elegant face. "You said you wanted to kill me?" Her satirizing words fell into Chu Hai-cheng's ears. His dark face flushed. He was completely humiliated. Today was the first time he had lost so much face. Gong Xiaoqing and Yi Huqing's battle was tight, their strength equally matched. Although Gong Xiaoqing had Azure Watershoal's resources, the progress Yi Huqing made by living in the mountain ranges and fighting every day, learning through experience, wasn't small at all. The two strength was completely equal. Determining a victor would take a very long time. Dongfang Yu was only a hair width away from breaking through to the middle stage of Mysterious Heaven and completely suppressed his opponent. Finishing him would only take a short amount of time. Lu Qinyue was in a rather difficult situation. Women were never the best at fighting others, let alone her opponent, which seemed to be specialized to deal with her. Under such circumstances, Lu Qinyue was little by little retreating in defeat. Her beautiful face was furious, but there were no other alternatives. After all, beauties were most scared of running into rogues, especially a gentle as water beauty like Lu Qinyue. Chapter 260. Yi Huqing and his team had originally planned to capture Bailey Hongzhuang and Lu Qinyue. That way, not only would Gong Xiaoqing and Dongfang Yu be at their mercy, they would also be able to get back their face. Unfortunately, Bailey Hongzhuang changed everything. Chu Hai-chung wasn't able to handle Bailey Hongzhuang and had even gotten seriously injured. So, they were at a disadvantage. Dongfang Yu's face was bright as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, filled with surprise and admiration. Bailey Hongzhuang's strength really wasn't like a normal newbie's, because even amongst Azure Water School's special enrollment students, nobody had fighting strength as stunning as hers. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't stop, directly going to Lu Qinyue. Since they were part of the same group, they were naturally teammates. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang come to help, Lu Qinyue sighed in relief. She really couldn't bear facing such a vulgar man. Gong Xiaoqing's eyes were dark and cold, his voice bone-chillingly cold. "You lose." This time, Yi Huqing lost. It wasn't that he lost to Gong Xiaoqing, but his team who lost to Gong Xiaoqing's. Yi Huqing's face was dark, his cold eyes sinister. He looked at Gong Xiaoqing, unresigned. You're just lucky this time. Chu Haicheng, that trash. Their originally simple plan was completely destroyed because of that bastard. He actually lost to Gong Xiaoqing again. So hateful. Yihuchen stopped attacking. There was no point in continuing the battle anymore, because the outcome is already determined. He turned his gaze. Yihuchen looks deeply at Bailey Hongzhuang and waved his large hands. Let's go. After Yihuchen and the other three left, Gong Xiaoqing and Dongfang, you went to Bailey Hongzhuang and Lu Qinyue's side. How are you two? Gong Xiaoqing's knife-like eyes lost a few bits of coldness. Those light eyes that never carried any expression showed a few senses of concern. Bailey Hongzhuang lightly shook her head. She turned her head and looks at the Lu Qinyue off to the side. Ever since Yihuchen showed up, Lu Qinyue's condition didn't seem right. Only afraid that she didn't suffer any physical harm, but received a hard blow in the heart. Gong Xiaoqing walked forward. He walks over to Lu Qinyue's side. He starts to speak in a low voice, but it seemed to be more gentle and soft than normal. You have me here. You don't have to worry. After these words are out, the Lu Qinyue's deep dark eyes suddenly blossomed a bright and dazzling light. It seems as if Gong Xiaoqing was her sunshine that brightened up her deep, darkened heart. Gong Deji, thank you. Her beautiful face, as small as a palm, was still a bit pale, mist in her exquisite eyes. It was like raindrops on a pear blossom, truly making one feel pity. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang was a girl, looking at such a Lu Qinyue, her heart also couldn't help but grow a bit soft. A weeping beauty would always be able to shake the heart. Dongfang Yu blinked his coquettish eyes, the pink outer edges of his eyes filled with charm. Bailey Hongzhuang, I hadn't thought that your fighting strength would be so strong. Your performance was truly stunning. Bypassing levels in the fight and beating Chu Haicheng in such a short time, her combat strength really was amazing. He started to get a little curious how the two teachers had managed to find such a heaven-defying talent like Bailey Honghaung. A relaxed and astute look flickered by Bailey Hongzhuang's beautiful eyes, her cherry-red lips stretching into an enchanting smile. You're flattering me, just flattering me. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's strange and mischievous appearance, Dongfang Yu's eyes shined. This Bailey Honghaung was truly hard not to like. Gong Xiaoqing and Lu Qinyue were off to the side, exchanging whispers to each other. Bailey Hongzhuang and Dongfang Yu walked away, giving the pair some space. Chapter 261. You're not curious about Yihuchen and our relationship? Dongfang Yu raised his eyebrow, smiling as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were calm and clear, the corners of her mouth curling into a faint smile. If you want to tell me, I also won't mind listening. After all, this was their affair. She couldn't open other people's scars just for the sake of satisfying her own curiosity. In fact, she also wasn't very curious because she had already guessed most of what happened. Dongfang Yu's dark eyes showed surprise and appreciation. For Bailey Hongzhuang's age, understanding like this really wasn't easy. At first, he had admired Bailey Hongzhuang's looks and resourcefulness, using the mountain bandits to get rid of her pursuers effortlessly. Now, as group mates in the mountains, he admired Bailey Hongzhuang's courage and maturity. No matter how you looked at it, she didn't have a single flaw. Yihuchen also used to be an Azure Water School special enrollment student. Dongfang Yu finally told the whole story to Bailey Hongzhuang. In the future, they'd all be teammates and would always act together. This wasn't the first time Yihuchen tried to find trouble with them, and probably also not the last. Knowing the whole story would help the team to harmonize better. From Dongfang Yu, Bailey Hongzhuang got to fully know the ins and outs of the story. So, originally, Yihuchen and Gong Xiaoqing's strength were evenly matched. It could be said that they were two leading spotlight figures in Azure Water School. Gong Xiaoqing was cold, preferring to cultivate alone. Yihuchen was comparatively cheerful and liked to make friends. Lu Qinyue, Azure Water School's #1 beauty, had already liked Gong Xiaoqing from a long time ago. But Yihuchen liked Lu Qinyue. Originally, There was no enmity between Gong Xiaoqing and Yi Huqing. But then when Yi Huqing found out that the one in Lu Qinyue's heart was Gong Xiaoqing, he was filled with unwillingness and anger. He looked for a chance to compete with Gong Xiaoqing, intending to prove himself as Azure Water School's #1, so Lu Qinyue could know that he was the best. But for Gong Xiaoqing, such a boring competition wasn't interesting at all. One day, Yi Huqing sent a slip of paper to Lu Qinyue, telling her to meet in the mountains. Lu Qinyue thought it was Gong Xiaoqing and went to the mountains. When Yi Huqing saw Lu Qinyue actually come, he was filled with happiness. But then Lu Qinyue suddenly turned and walked away abruptly, stirring up Yi Huqing's long-suppressed anger. In that moment, he rushed at Lu Qinyue, intending to force her. Fortunately, Gong Xiaoqing and Dong Fangyu were also cultivating in the mountains and saved Lu Qinyue. Otherwise, the result would have been too horrible to even think about. Because of this, Yi Huqing was punished and expelled from Azure Water School. Since then, there had always been hate and animosity between the two teams. So it's like that. Bailey Honghaong's eyes were filled with understanding. It was more or less the same as what she had guessed earlier. Lu Qinyue suffered a lot of trauma and was muddle-headed for a long time after that. Gong Xiaoqing thought it was because of him, so he looks after Lu Qinyue a lot. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. I couldn't tell. It looks like Gong Xiaoqing is still quite righteous. Although he's cold and not good at speaking, his personal character is actually rather good. Dong Fangyu winked brightly, a joking smile on his lips. Otherwise, I wouldn't be friends with him. Master. Baisher's two small paws kept digging into the ground, his watery eyes filled with anticipation. Didn't they agree that he could come out? How could she forget after a chat? Little Black and Little White sympathized. In fact, they had also never got to go out before. Chapter 262. Bailey Hongzhuang had only just remembered the unwilling, idle little guy and immediately brought him out of the primordial chaos ring. Baisher's whole body was covered in soft, fluffy fur, making him seem just like a cute puppy as he incessantly pulled on Bailey Hongzhuang's robes. Master. Bailey Hongzhuang put Baisher on her shoulder. Baisher's face was very happy, intimately rubbing against the crook of Bailey Hongzhuang's neck. She patted Baisher's head. Although she still didn't know what sort of demonic beast he was, Bailey Hongzhuang still liked him very much. Dong Fangyu looked Baisher, who had suddenly appeared beside Bailey Hongzhuang, his deep eyes flashing with surprise. Who's this little guy? My contract beast. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled beautifully and then frowned a little, although I still don't know what kind of demonic beast it is. Contract beast. Dong Fangyu was startled. Such a contract beast? Could it be that this young noble miss is raising it just as an ornamental contract beast? But that doesn't seem to match Bailey Hongzhuang's usual temperament. This little guy is a dog? Dong Fangyu reached out to pet Baisher as he spoke. The originally docile and obedient Baisher suddenly bared its fangs, glaring at Dong Fangyu viciously. Dong Fangyu pulled back his hand, his eyes still smiling. I also don't know what sort of demonic beast this is. Seeing Dong Fangyu think of Baisher as a dog, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with helplessness. Could it be Baisher really was a dog? Her legendary reputation. She had originally wanted to become a famous existence of Shengxian continent, but it seemed like there was already a misstep in her plan. At this moment, Gong Xiaoqing and Lu Qinyue were about done talking. When they turned and saw Baisher on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulders, their faces were both filled with astonishment. This is Bailey Honghaong's contract beast. Dong Fangyu introduced them. Gong Xiaoqing. Do you know what kind of demonic beast this is? Gong Xiaoqing inspected the plump, little adorable thing before looking at Bailey Hongzhuang thoughtfully. I don't know. Bailey Hongzhuang rolled her eyes. Just now, she had clearly seen Gong Xiaoqing smirk a little at her contract beast's uselessness. Contract beasts weren't something easy at all. Every cultivator only had one chance to get a contract beast, so if one got the opportunity, they would definitely never waste it. Though, of course, wanting to find a contract beast wasn't at all easy. Many cultivators were so poor that they couldn't even afford the chance to contract one. As Azure Water School's special enrollment students, their futures were limitless, so wanting to get a contract beast wasn't at all an impossible task. A contract beast's biggest use was its power in a battle. But Bailey Hongzhuang's contract beast only seemed to have one purpose: acting cute. But it's cute. Yu Gong, Shaoqing walked forward, his voice falling into Bailey Honghao's ears. 3 black lines appeared on Bailey Honghao's forehead. That sentence should be considered a compliment, right? Then how come from Gong Shaoqing's mouth? It sounded like something completely different. Dongfang Yu and Gong Shaoqing continued to cut the armored rhinoceros until it was completely dissected. On the side, Lu Qingyue waited with Bailey Hongzhuang. Hongzhuang, your contract beast is so adorable. Lu Qingyue's beautiful eyes were bright, completely helpless against Baishi's cute appearance. Chapter 263, Can I Hug It? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Baishi. Recalling his previous aggression towards Dongfang Yu, she shook her head. This little guy doesn't like anyone else but me, so he might bite. Oh, Lu Qingyue was somewhat disappointed, but still smiled. He really knows his master. Baishi glanced at Lu Qingyue lazily before happily snuggling into Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder, a bit uneasy. Little Black and Little White glanced at each other. Little Black muttered angrily, "This guy stole our seats. He's a contract beast, just like us, but look at the difference in treatment." Little White curled his lips. Baishi was lying happily on their master's shoulders, while they could only pretend to be ornaments on her head. Heart really hurts. Little White clutched his chest and dropped his head. So depressing. You guys are also my contract beasts. Bailey Hongzhuang's clear phoenix eyes were filled with confusion. We never made a contract, have we? Even though Little Black and Little White had been calling her master ever since the primordial chaos ring acknowledged her as its owner, they never actually made a contract together before. Master, when you contracted with the primordial chaos ring, you also contracted with us. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes became even more confused. Even supposing Little Black and Little White's words were correct, wasn't everyone only allowed to contract one demonic beast? I have 3 contract beasts. Little Black eyes curved until they seemed just like crescent moons. Master, you're the owner of the primordial chaos ring, so of course you're different from normal people. There's no limit to the number of contract beasts you can get. As your strength grows, the amount of contract beasts you may get also increases. Bailey Honghao's eyes brightened up, although she only found out about this today. Having no limit to her contract beasts really was so convenient. The corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's lips stretched into a smile. The only regret she had about her contract with Baishi was his lack of fighting power. It must be known that until your strength reached a certain level, contract beasts were very, very helpful in a tough battle. Since she had missed such a huge assist, she was obviously a bit regretful. But since now that regret no longer existed, she was naturally very happy. Master, Baishi can see other people, so when can us too? Little Black asked miserably, his face filled with hardship. Speaking of that, they were here first, but Baishi had gotten the first victory already. Bailey Hongzhuang felt herself blush with shame. It wasn't that she was unwilling to let the 2 fluff balls to see others, but who told her contract beast to be so outstanding? So far, no matter if it was Baishi or the 2 fluff balls, she didn't know the species of any of them. Baishi looked like he was just a little puppy, but the 2 fluff balls, they were just too conspicuous. Wait for me to get stronger. Her dark phoenix eyes were serious and determined. Baishi looked completely harmless, so others weren't that envious. But Little Black and Little White were really too special. Not everybody could stay untempted. Little Black and Little White looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's serious face and didn't continue to talk. They understood Bailey Hongzhuang's thoughts. Dongfang Yu quickly put away the leather. There was nothing else of value left on the armored rhinoceros's body. Its flesh wasn't tasty, so they just left it there. So many demonic beasts rushing out at full power was truly a horrifying scene. If the horde overtook you, the only thing left was death. Gong Shaoqing returned very quickly, his handsome, cold face ashen. Quickly run. It's a demonic beast tide. Hearing his words, Dongfang Yu and Lu Qinyue's faces turned deathly pale. With their cultivation levels, they might not be able to survive the demonic beast tide. Demonic beast tide. Lu Qinyue's face was wan, her voice somewhat unbelieving. This sort of rare, 100-year event was actually happening to them right now. Chapter 264. We're already done with the armored rhinoceros, so let's head back. Dongfang Yu's voice was gentle. Originally, we could have stayed in Luo Yin Mountains for a while, but since we made a bet, it's better for us to not tarry. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded lightly. Then let's leave early. The four no longer stopped, preparing to leave Luo Yin Mountains. But at this moment, countless demonic beasts suddenly let out a loud cry, rising and falling in succession, echoing through all of Luo Yin Mountain. Roar! The loud, terrifying sounds never stopped. The demonic beasts seemed to be provoked and restless, like the pack was in chaos. The floor began to tremble as a strange mood spread through the air. The four's faces all turned grave, sensing something bad. What happened? Lu Qinyue's beautiful eyes were filled with astonishment and worry. She had gone to Luo Yin Mountains many times before, but this was the first time she had encountered such a situation. Gong Shaoqing's face was heavy. You guys wait here, I'll take a look. Gong Deji, be careful. The moment Gong Shaoqing turned to go deep inside the mountain range, Lu Qinyue's voice rang out. Gong Shaoqing nodded. I'll be back very soon. Dongfang, take care of them. Don't worry. Right now, Dongfang Yu's face no longer had his usual teasing smile. His handsome face was prudent and serious, actually giving people an entirely different impression. The demonic beast's howls grew even more fierce, the sounds of their roars intertwining in the sky. Their deafening bellows were almost enough to make Bailey Honghaong's ears bleed. The noises were aggressive, and with so many different roars joining together, it was filled with spirit power. It could be said as a magical song. Bailey Hongzhuang's enchantingly delicate face was serious. Staring at the scene in front of her, a terrible prenomination appeared in her heart. She had run into something like this before. It was a demonic beast tide. However, at that time, she was quite strong, so even though it had been a narrow escape, she still wasn't wounded by the demonic beast tide. But right now, she was just a newbie that had only begun to cultivate. Master, it seems like a demonic beast tide. Little White's words smashed apart Bailey Honghaong's hope. This is dangerous. You have to leave Luo Yin Mountains now, or you might lose your life. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with helplessness. It was her first time at Luo Yin Mountains. Her luck was simply too good. A demonic beast tide was the same as all the demonic beasts in the mountains coming together. It was very rare. All the demonic beasts were stampeding madly in the same direction. Anyone in their way would be directly trampled underfoot. The demonic beasts seemed to lose their wisdom and only knew how to charge forwards wildly, no matter what the species. All the demonic beasts on Luo Yin Mountain. How terrifying was that number? So many demonic beasts rushing out at full power was truly a horrifying scene. If the horde overtook you, the only thing left was death. Gong Shaoqing returned very quickly, his handsome, cold face ashen. Quickly run. It's a demonic beast tide. Hearing his words, Dongfang Yu and Lu Qinyue's faces turned deathly pale. With their cultivation levels, they might not be able to survive the demonic beast tide. Demonic beast tide? Lu Qinyue's face was wan, her voice somewhat unbelieving. This sort of rare, 100-year event was actually happening to them right now. Chapter 265. The four didn't even have time to talk with each other before madly running towards the exit. Right now, 1 second could spell the difference between life and death. Rumble. The floor constantly shook. Screams of terror sounded behind them, becoming louder and louder as the earth trembled stronger and stronger. The destruction power was even bigger than an earthquake. One moment of carelessness would leave you lying on the floor. The four all ran at their fastest speed possible. Bailey Hongzhuang's moves were swift, creating multiple shadows with nimble steps, just like a ghost. Gong Xiaoqing's group of three's speed wasn't bad. As special enrollment students, they all naturally had their own cards. Right now, they had already escaped from the deepest parts of Luo Yun Mountain. But how could running out of what took several days' worth to reach be so easy? Run faster. It's a demonic beast tide. Ah! Cries of alarm were everywhere as many cultivators ran beside Bailey Hongzhuang. When everyone saw the tide of demonic beasts, they all immediately dropped whatever they were doing and ran as fast as they could towards the exit. A demonic beast's greatest strengths were their power and speed, so their current pace was utterly terrifying. The tide ran over the earth, breaking down a countless number of trees. It was a disaster. Gong Xiaoqing poured spirit power in both his legs, making him even faster. But he then discovered that Bailey Hongzhuang's speed was even faster than him. Dongfang Yu was also astonished. Bailey Hongzhuang's movements now were even more outstanding than when she had been fighting the armored rhinoceros. It seemed like her movement martial arts really were unusual. Bailey Hongzhuang had the weakest cultivation, but Lu Qinyue was the slowest. Her beautiful, flower-like face had long turned pale. Gong Xiaoqing directly grabbed Lu Qinyue's hand, boosting her speed. Sensing the warmth of his hand, happiness flickered through Lu Qinyue's eyes. Gong Deji was holding her hand, but under such dangerous circumstances, Lu Qinyue had no time to lose herself in joy. Only by surviving could something be possible. Running at such fast speeds, everyone's spirit power was being consumed extremely quickly. Before long, they all started devouring their qi returning pills. At such a crucial moment, qi returning pills were extremely important. The curtain of night slowly descended. Bailey Hongzhuang's group still continued to run. Because of the seemingly never-tired demonic beasts chasing after them, the distance between them had slowly drawn closer. Bursts of pain came from all over their bodies. They had inevitably run into some brambles and thorns, riddling their bodies with cuts and scars. After running nonstop for an entire day, their bodies had reached its limits, and their consumption speed of the qi-returning pills was truly frightening. Lu Qinyue only had 4 qi-returning pills left. She knew that Gong Xiaoqing and Dongfang Yu had both already ran out, so there were only these 4 pills left. Who knew how long they would last? She passed 3 of the pills to Gong Xiaoqing and the rest, a flicker of sadness going past Lu Qinyue's watery eyes. Gong Xiaoqing and Dongfang Yu's faces were extremely ugly. They thought that the mission would be easy and didn't do a lot of preparation. Nobody thought that they'd end up running into a demonic beast tide. Qinyue, it's better to keep the qi-returning pills for yourself. Gong Xiaoqing's voice was indifferent but held obvious traces of concern. Chapter 266. Now, their probability of surviving was getting smaller and smaller. If the remaining qi-returning pills were to be split, probably none of them would survive. Dongfang Yu also didn't accept the pill. He thought the same as Gong Xiaoqing. Gong Deji, Dongfang, with my speed, it's even more impossible to survive. You guys have to persevere. Lu Qinyue's eyes were firm and decisive, directly shoving the pills to Gong Xiaoqing and Dongfang Yu. Out of the 4, Lu Qinyue was the slowest. If it wasn't for her, everybody's speed would have been a lot faster. She didn't want to implicate everyone. While everyone was trying to evade the qi-returning pills, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly spoke up. I still have some qi-returning pills too, so you guys don't have to worry. She had never liked being unprepared, so even though the mission they came on today wasn't very dangerous, she still prepared a lot of things just in case. But she never thought that this time they'd actually have to use it. When they heard Bailey Hongzhuang's voice, the three's eyes all turned to look at her brightly. Bailey Hongzhuang was as calm as usual. As a pill master, the thing she lacked most were pills she could refine. The ingredients needed to refine a qi-returning pill wasn't expensive, and nor was it hard to refine one, so Bailey Hongzhuang had already prepared a lot. Bailey Hongzhuang took out 3 porcelain bottles and handed them out to the other 3. Dongfang Yu opened the bottle and peeked inside. Astonishingly, there were 10 chi returning pills inside. One person, one bottle. Wouldn't that mean Bailey Hongzhuang had at least 40 chi returning pills? Weren't you just coming to learn through experience? Why did it seem like you came to sell pills instead? Dongfang Yu really wanted to ask. Up to now, the number of cultivators he had seen wasn't small, but this was the first time he saw a cultivator like Bailey Hongzhuang bring along so many pills. Too rich. Although chi returning pills were only first-rank pills, because many cultivators wanted them, the price wasn't at all cheap. Bailey Hongzhuang giving them so much at once was really grand, ah? Lu Qinhua blinked, startled. Even as a pill master, she never carried around so many pills. This amount was truly enough to make others shocked. When Gong Xiaoqing's face with facial nerve paralysis saw the pills, a crack appeared on his icy demeanor as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang deeply. Thank you. At such a dangerous moment, with these pills, there was hope. For them, Bailey Hongzhuang's act was extremely significant. Her beautiful face had a brilliant, careless smile. If fine, if it still isn't enough, I have some more. When the rushing Dongfang Yu heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words, he tripped. This girl, does she want people to die from anger? Gong Xiaoqing was silent. Coming across such a prodigal and generous teammate, he really didn't know what to say. Lu Qinyue's eyes were thoughtful. As a pill master, she knew a lot about pills. Chi-returning pills were an item that would be fought for by cultivators until there was not even a single one left. To have so many chi-returning pills, what kind of background did you need to have? Or maybe Bailey Hongzhuang herself was a pill master. Lu Qinhua didn't leave out the possibility. After all, she herself was a pill master, so of course it was possible that Bailey Hongzhuang was one too. Chapter 267. Everybody rushed forward. Behind them, a blood-curdling scream of a cultivator could occasionally be heard. Almost none of the cultivators had prepared enough pills, and their spirit power had long been completely consumed in their hurry to escape. At such a critical time, if they were to slow down even a bit, it'd be the end. Everybody's hearts were filled with dread, afraid that they would be the ones to fall. But even as Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest ran with all their strength, the horde of demonic beasts only got closer and closer. Rumble! A huge sound echoed. Suddenly, the demonic beast tide was only a few hundred away and was approaching at a terrifying speed. They were done for. That thought appeared in everybody's minds. Under the tide of demonic beasts, there was simply nowhere to hide. But at this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest suddenly came upon two paths. Take the left road. Gong Xiaoqing immediately chose a direction. A mountain peak was in the middle of the two paths. Not even a demonic beast tide could stomp a mountain flat. There was a secret cave on the left road. If they could hide in the cave, they might be able to survive. Gong Xiaoqing pulled Lu Qinyue's hand, quickly running to the left road. The other cultivators had long lost their own judgment, so when they heard Gong Xiaoqing's words, they all immediately ran to the left path as well. If the demonic beasts could be said to have gone from slow to fast, seeing the cultivators in front of them scramble around like chickens, their speed grew even faster. The distance instantly closed by several tens of meters. Now, all the cultivators could clearly sense the demonic beast's breath behind their backs. Dongfang Yu reached out his hand, trying to pull Bailey Hongzhuang back. But because of all the brambles and trees they had to evade while escaping, the distance between them had grown a bit wide. Right now, Bailey Hongzhuang was very close to going on the right road. In her current circumstances, there was no way for her to change paths alone, because if she slowed down even a bit, the only thing left was death. Bailey Hongzhuang also reached out her hand. The only way to get to the left road was by accepting Dongfang Yu's help. But the other cultivators were running as if they were mad, separating Dongfang Yu and Bailey Hongzhuang's outstretched hands. Bailey Hongzhuang. Dongfang Yu's handsome face was pale. They had missed their only opportunity. Missing it would separate them in a way made them no different from the separate entities of yin and yang. Damn! Bailey Hongzhuang ground her teeth. This group of cultivators was just too hateful. Now the situation was already irreversible. She could only continue on the right road. After reaching the crossroad, the demonic beast tide split up into two groups and continued to give chase. "Master, it's dangerous." Little Black's face was serious. There was only a bit more than 5 meters between them and the terrifying demonic beast tide. At this point, even they didn't know what to do. Is there really no way? Her beautiful, delicate face was unwilling and helpless. She absolutely could not accept this kind of death. "There's a cliff ahead," Little White suddenly spoke. Hearing that, Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes sharpened as her heart slowly came to a decision. Since she would die anyway, it was better to run to the cliff and jump than be trampled underfoot by the demonic beasts. Chapter 268. Bailey Hongzhuang's speed accelerated once more. Since she had already lost her will to survive, she might as well go all out. The originally constantly nearing gap between her and beasts was slowly starting to widen. Almost all the cultivators heard Gong Shaoqing's words and charged into the left lane. The other cultivators were all dead under the demonic beast tide, so Bailey Hongzhuang was the only one still running on the right lane. The precipice was just ahead. A decisive light appeared in Bailey Hongzhuang's dark eyes. Right now, she had no other choice. Behind her, the demonic beasts were throwing themselves towards Bailey Hongzhuang. Their mouths opened up wide as cold light reflected off their sharp, bloody teeth. But just as a demonic beast's jaws were about to clamp onto Bailey Hongzhuang's neck, there was suddenly a loud roar. Roar! A young and tender, but fierce suddenly came from Baisher's throat, his small and weak figure forming a huge contrast with the three big, ferocious demonic beasts. It was extremely arrogant, but when Baisher roared, the originally three lunging demonic beasts actually stopped, trembling as they looked at him. Under that roar, the mad demonic beast tide actually stopped. Roar! Baisher roared once more, and the originally baffled demonic beasts started to crawl on the floor, their huge, terrifying figures actually shivering on the ground. Bailey Hongzhuang's dark phoenix eyes were filled with shock and amazement, her figure, which was about to jump down the cliff, abruptly halting. Bailey Hongzhuang stared at the prostrating demonic beasts in front of her. Their reaction seemed as if they were instinctively afraid of Baisher. What kind of joke was this? These huge, terrifying demonic beasts were actually scared of the little guy on her shoulder. Little Black and Little White also looked at Baisher astonished. They didn't expect that this little guy would actually have such an ability. Baisher lazily stretched before once again snuggling back on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder. He was sleeping, but those repulsive guys just had to disturb him. Bailey Hongzhuang was stunned. It seemed like her previous judgment was wrong. Baisher really wasn't a normal demonic beast, but its deviously cute appearance was simply to deceive. What kind of strength was enough that a single roar was enough to stop a demonic beast tide from moving? Nobody else had the power to but the demonic beasts at the very top of the pyramid. Demonic beasts and humans cultivated differently. For humans, no matter how strong the parents were, their children all still had to cultivate from the beginning. But demonic beasts had a more hierarchical concept. If the species was strong, then the offspring would be strong. Even a newly born demonic beast, with its species' deterrence power, could scare all the other demonic beasts away. Clearly, Baisher's species wasn't simple. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned, even more confused. She knew about almost all of the top demonic beasts, but how come she never saw anything like Baisher? But regardless, none of that mattered. Just knowing Baisher's amazingness was enough. The demonic beast tide was stopped, and she had managed to survive without jumping down a cliff. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but sigh with relief. Baisher, let these guys leave. The corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into an enchanting smile. Ordering so many demonic beasts felt so good. Roar! Baisher roared once more. The other demonic beasts glanced quickly at him before running away frantically, as if they had received amnesty. Chapter 279 in a flash. All the demonic beasts flew away in front of Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Bai Shi, who was on her shoulder. His face was filled with pride and anticipation as he happily rubbed against Bailey Hongzhuang, clearly wanting praise. But Bailey Hongzhuang just smacked Bai Shi's head, retorting angrily, "You could have just roared and solved everything. You almost let your master jump off a cliff." Now, as she remembered how she had given up hope and nearly fell into despair, this little guy could have long fixed everything with just a call. When the eagerly awaiting Bai Shi was smacked instead of rewarded, his big, watery eyes filled with a misty sheen as his little mouth formed a pout. Its small body curled up in Bailey Hongzhuang's bosom, appearing very pitiful. Even though she knew that the little guy was deliberately acting pitiful, Bailey Hongzhuang no longer had the heart to scold him anymore, instead of taking out the demonic crystal from the armored rhinoceros to give to Bai Shi. The tears in his eyes instantly disappeared when he saw the crystal. His eyes shined brightly as he immediately snatched the crystal and began to gnaw on it. Really, this guy truly was best at acting cute. Bailey Hongzhuang put Bai Shi back onto her shoulders. Her plight was over, but what about Gong Shaoqing and the others? Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to leave, she suddenly heard a small sound. Her eyes turned cold. There was actually somebody here. Bailey Hongzhuang's spirit power surged through her body as she cautiously approached the direction of the sound, prepared to fight. At the back of the mountain, a big boulder blocked her sight. The other person was clearly behind that boulder. "Who's there?" Her cold voice was laced with a warning as she stared at the rock. "Miss, I'm only here to avoid the demonic beast tide." A hoarse, low voice came from behind the boulder, causing Bailey Hongzhuang to frown a little. From her voice, she could tell that he was in a weak state and injured. Life-threateningly injured. Bailey Hongzhuang's dark eyes were sharp. She did not want Bai Shi's secret to be exposed. Holding the ice-chilling sword, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly sneaked past the boulder. A man was lying on the boulder, black hair pouring down in torrents beside him. His handsome face was like a piece of art carved by the gods themselves, sword-like eyebrows long and straight like a willow. His eminent eyes were deep like a black hole, cold and ruthless. He was wearing a soft black robe, the color deep and inky, propitious clouds embroidered on it with silver thread. It was luxurious yet subdued. The man's robes were slightly loose, revealing his exquisite collarbones and chin, radiating sex appeal. If you looked down just a bit, dark blood had already dyed the robes red. With only a glance, Bailey Hongzhuang could already tell the injury was very serious. But even in such a situation, the man actually still smiled. His smile was cold and violent, but it was still impossible to deny his handsome face, still filled with charm and fascination. In short, this man was extremely dangerous. Bailey Hongzhuang's intuition told her that the man wasn't simple and wouldn't allow himself to be touched. It's better to just leave. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang turned around to leave, an icy voice rang. "Woman, why don't we make a deal?" A trace of interest flitted past Ma Yunju's dark eyes. When he saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Bai Shi, he thought they were rather interesting. Chapter 270, the grand and stately demonic beast king actually acknowledged a mere mysterious earth middle stage cultivation woman as its master. And what was even more interesting is that the woman didn't even know the one she had contracted with was the demonic beast king. While he was sizing up Bailey Hongzhuang, he hadn't missed the trace of ruthless killing intent flicking past her eyes. It seemed like this woman wasn't as simple as she looked. Right now, his injury was very serious. If he could get the demonic beast king's blood, he'd be able to heal much faster. Not interested, Bailey Hongzhuang continued to walk away without any hint of hesitation. "What about if I know who the contract beast sitting on your shoulder is?" Bailey Hongzhuang's footsteps paused as she slowly turned to look at Ma Yunju, her penetrating eyes a bit sly. She asked coldly and bluntly, "Conditions." "The little guy's blood." Ma Yunju's voice was indifferent, but then added, "to treat my injury." When Ma Yunju brought up Bai Shi's blood, Bailey Hongzhuang had already decided to refuse. But then when she heard that it was to treat his wound, she became a little hesitant. How about I cure your wound, and you tell me Baisher's identity? Ma Yunju's eyes flashed as he replied, Woman, aren't you afraid that I'll kill you after you treat me? Don't forget that your injury is under my control. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was indifferent, her bright, crystal-clear eyes filled with wisdom and self-confidence. Although she was definitely inferior to this man in terms of strength, he also wasn't her opponent when it came to medical techniques. Her simple reply actually hit a cold front. Ma Yunju glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang thoughtfully. It's a deal. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly kneeled next to Ma Yunju. Speak. Ma Yunju's eyes were a bit bright. Up to now, he had never seen a woman dare to be so close to him. And the most interesting thing was that even though this woman was so weak, she was still brave enough to face him confidently. He was always an existing feared by everybody, so talking to a woman this closely was a new experience. The little guy on your shoulder is the demonic Beast King. When she heard him speak, Bailey Hongzhuang's beautiful eyes lit up, a wave of shock and amazement washing over her heart. She looked at the king character on Baisher's forehead and understood. Demonic Beast Kings were the kings of demonic beasts, classified as a mythical race. Demonic Beast Kings and other demonic beasts of the mythical race were a mystery and held power acknowledged by all the other demonic beasts. Also, there could only be one demonic beast king at a time. Only when the previous generation dies could the next generation be born. Even though she also never once saw what a demonic beast king looked like, she hadn't expected that this seemingly powerless, cute little guy would actually be the demonic beast king. She didn't doubt Ma Yunju's words at all. This was the most probable answer. Ma Yunju watched Bailey Hongzhuang's expressions change. It seemed like that was actually in her expectations. Gong Shaoqing and the others managed to successfully hide in the cave. Watching the demonic beast zip by unceasingly outside, the three's hearts were all shocked. Demonic beast tides were truly too terrifying. Even though they heard about its dangers before, actually experiencing it made them clearly understand that their previous thoughts were far too simple. Lu Qingyue deeply sighed, her beautiful face still pale. This feeling of surviving the calamity truly made one feel endlessly grateful. Chapter 271, Check back soon. Such a terrifying demonic beast tide. If they hadn't luckily managed to find a cave to hide in, they long would have been trampled to death. Dong Fangyu's face was extremely difficult to describe, his eyes filled with a constrained fury. Bailey Hongzhuang, it was only one step. If he had managed to grab Bailey Hongzhuang back then, the current situation wouldn't be like this. Gong Shaoqing's eyes also revealed his self-blame and unhappiness. If it wasn't for that guy disrupting things, how would Bailey Hongzhuang have sunk into such a dangerous situation? Although they didn't know what would happen on the right side road, they could already foresee what would happen from here. Bailey Hongzhuang had no chance of survival. It was their first time taking Bailey Hongzhuang out for a mission, and the teachers entrusted her to their care, but they had allowed Bailey Hongzhuang to lose her life. Lu Qingyue's face was pale, her slim, fair hands covering her mouth as her eyes turned misty. They were just hunting demonic beasts together a few hours ago. Nobody expected that in such a short time, Bailey Hongzhuang would lose her life. Dongfang, you could only feel a hard-to-describe pain and fury burning in the bottom of his stomach with no way to vent it. This was the first time he experienced such a feeling. It was strange but suffocating. Damn it! Dongfang Yu grabbed the collar of the elated man next to him, directly pushing the man into the air. If it wasn't for this man running between them midway, Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't have died. Bang! Dongfang Yu ruthlessly punched the man's face, sending the man flying several meters away. Panic appeared on the man's face. He immediately understood why Dongfang Yu had hit him. Although his heart was somewhat sullen, he didn't dare to say anything. After all, Dongfang Yu was just too strong. Plus, it was him who was in the wrong. At such a critical juncture, he only wanted to save his own life. So even if he could choose all over again, he would still pick the same option. Bang, bang, bang. Dongfang Yu continued to punch the man's body, treating him as if he was a punching bag. But even though he did that, he was still unable to vent the suffocating pain and anger burning in his heart. The man was badly battered and spouting blood, but could only receive it passively. Gong Xiaoqing just stared at the man coldly, finally also sending the man flying into a rock with a kick. Clearly, Gong Xiaoqing's heart was also unpleasant. Lu Qinyue's eyes were filled with shock and confusion when she saw Gong Xiaoqing's kick. She had almost never seen Gong Xiaoqing do such a thing before. It was also the first time she had seen Dongfang Yu act so emotionally. As cultivators, they never really experienced the feeling of losing a comrade. But still, Dongfang Yu had never been as angry as today. Gong Deji, Dongfang, Hongzhuang's accident was something none of us thought would happen. Lu Qinwei comforted, but Gong Xiaoqing and Dongfang Yu didn't reply. They clearly didn't care the slightest bit about Lu Qinyue's consultation. I hope Bailey Hongzhuang will be all right. Dongfang Yu's expression was sincere and earnest. Even though he knew the probability was extremely small, he still held a gleam of hope. Bailey Honghang looked at the wound going across almost half of Ma Yunju's body, astonishment flashing in her eyes. This wound, if it was just the slightest bit deeper, Ma Yunju definitely won't even have a single chance of surviving. But even like this, if Ma Yunju continued to dilly-dally, he'd be throwing away his life. The wound was faintly black. Ma Yunju had been poisoned. Chapter 272. But even with such a serious injury, this man was still able to sit here calmly to watch the show. Such a temperament was truly exceptional. Hurts? Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but ask. His injury was truly terrible. Ma Yunju's ice-cold face suddenly turned stiff as he stared at Bailey Honghang, astonished as if he couldn't believe what he had heard. Painful. Nobody had ever asked him if it was painful before. In his world, there was only success and failure. There were never any activities or emotions like pain. Never had a person asked him how he felt, so when this strange woman asked, his heart couldn't help but tremble for a split second. Seeing Ma Yunju staying silent, Bailey Honghang no longer hesitated. If she continued to delay it, Ma Yunju's life would truly be lost. Opening her bag of needles, Bailey Hongzhuang carefully began to detoxify Ma Yunju. She had to dissolve the poison before binding his wound. When Ma Yunju saw her moving so busily and resolutely, a trace of confusion crossed through his dark eyes. What was this type of medical treatment? Could it be those long-lost acupuncture techniques? If it was another person, he probably would have believed that they were only trying to stall for time until he died. But seeing Bailey Honghang's forehead beaded with sweat, he knew that she was seriously trying to help him. She was truly an interesting woman, still keeping her promises. With Bailey Hongzhuang's acupuncture, the black color in his wound slowly faded away, turning back into a bright scarlet red. Ma Yunju's eyes gradually changed. He seemed to have found an amazing girl. The Yunmong, cloudweed, he had swallowed was extremely poisonous and wasn't something an ordinary person could do anything about. Yet this girl had actually managed to completely dissolve it. Bailey Hongzhuang meticulously finished everything, her actions familiar and nimble. A high-grade medicine was applied to his wound before bandaging Ma Yunju securely. Done. Bailey Honghang raised her eyes, reaching out to hand Ma Yunju a white porcelain bottle. There are 3 pills inside. Take one every day, and the poison in you should be completely eradicated. Lowering her voice tone, Bailey Hongzhuang stood up. I'm going. She still didn't know what had happened with Dongfang Yu and the others, so she had to go meet up with them as soon as she could. What's your name? Ma Yunju's voice was muffled and hoarse as his eyes flickered with light. Bailey Hongzhuang hesitated for a moment before replying. Bailey Honghang. Ma Yunju. Taking note of his name, Bailey Honghang quickly walked back to Dongfang Yu's and the others' direction. She could only wish that the 3 of them were safe and sound. From Gong Xiaoqing's previously confident words, she knew that they should be hiding away in a cave. If there wasn't an accident, the 3 of them shouldn't be in danger. Dongfang Yu and the others were still in the cave, waiting for the demonic beast tide to pass to no avail. There were simply too many. Even after waiting for half the day, the tide still didn't finish, leaving them completely helpless. When will this damn demonic beast tide finish? Dongfang Yu's normally gentle and graceful appearance was gone, replaced by a tsunami surging in the depths of his eyes. Gong Xiaoqing kept silent, his eyes also dark and gloomy. The mood was suffocating. When the people in the cave saw Gong Xiaoqing and Dongfang Yu's faces, they didn't dare to even breathe. Azure Water School's special enrollment students were not only extremely strong, but also had limitless potential. They simply weren't their opponents. Seeing the man beaten half dead on the ground, they couldn't help but shrink back their heads. They absolutely couldn't provoke them. Otherwise, an even more miserable fate would probably fall onto them. Chapter 273. The demonic beast tide rushed past, making the ground tremble violently. The force made some of the rock in the cave crumble. The cavern was tottering as if it would collapse at any time. Everyone was scared and on the edge. They could only pray for the demonic beast tide to quickly pass. At last, the floor's trembling slowly diminished as all of the demonic beasts passed them. Dongfang Yu quickly left the cave, going in Bailey Hongzhuang's direction without the slightest hesitation. No emotion could be seen on his handsome, jade-like face. His mood was extremely complicated. He truly hoped that nothing happened to Bailey Hongzhuang, but was also worried that she would hate him for his uselessness. Gong Xiaoqing and Lu Qinhua followed, their steps extremely fast. They all wanted to hurry to Bailey Hongzhuang. After Dongfang Yu and the others left, everyone else in the cave all couldn't help but sigh with relief. Bailey Hongzhuang walked to the left path. The demonic beast completely devastated the surrounding area, turning it into a mess. The 100-something-year-old trees were all toppled over, ground into a fine dust. No matter what time it was, the havoc left by the demonic beast tide would always be terrifying. But after the demonic beast tide was over, both Azure Water School and the Mercenary Trade Union would suffer a big loss. Master, there's 3 people approaching us at high speed. Little White reported. Bailey Honghaung's bright phoenix eyes were filled with smiles. If she was correct, those 3 should be Dongfang Yu and the others. Soon, 3 specks of light appeared, zooming towards her at high speed. They really were Dongfang Yu and the others. Dongfang Yu, Gong Xiaoqing, and Lu Qinyue's hearts were filled with worry as they rushed here, cutting apart everything that was in their way. The air was a bit bloody. The number of cultivators crushed to death by the demonic beasts wasn't few at all. While they were hurrying forward, a fiery red-robed figure suddenly appeared in their vision. In such messy and empty surroundings, the enchanting red figure seemed exceptionally eye-catching. Bailey Hongzhuang. Dongfang Yu rubbed his eyes, staring at that smiling face in front of him, shocked. What? Is seeing me very strange? A smile blossomed on Bailey Hongzhuang's face. Under the bright sunshine, her smile seemed even more charming. She didn't miss the worry and joy reflected in Dongfang Yu's eyes. And although the time they had known each other hadn't been long, he wanted to consider her a close friend. Otherwise, he wouldn't have rushed out to look for her as soon as the demonic beast tide finished. You're safe. Dongfang Yu's voice was filled with doubt as he inspected Bailey Hongzhuang from top to bottom, discovering that she didn't have any serious injuries. Gong Xiaoqing and Lu Qinyue looked at the completely unharmed Bailey Hongzhuang, their eyes filled with amazement. Their tense faces relaxed as they smiled with relief. I'm all right. Her clear, beautiful face had a bright smile as her eyes seemed to light up. One is bound for good fortune after surviving a great disaster. Dongfang Yu sighed deeply with relief. He had almost been scared to death earlier, so now that he saw Bailey Hongzhuang was safe and sound, his mood quickly turned bright and sunny again. How did you avoid the demonic beast tide? Gong Xiaoqing's eyes were filled with doubt and confusion. He knew the terrain here very well. The right path Bailey Hongzhuang took was a dead end over a cliff. There was simply nowhere to hide. Chapter 274 Secret. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and didn't explain. Even though she had an explanation, it'd be hard for Gong Xiaoqing and the rest to believe it. Dongfang Yu rested his hand on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder and smiled widely. How you avoided them isn't important. It's a knot that you're safe. Seeing this, Gong Xiaoqing didn't continue his questioning. But this new little martial sister just seemed to be filled with mystery. Running into a dead end after a narrow escape from the demonic beast tide, yet still coming out completely unharmed, it was truly unimaginable. Lu Qinyue stared at Bailey Honghao, her clear, soft eyes twinkling with doubt before finally disappearing. Let's go back. Gong Xiaoqing slowly spoke. It's impossible to continue out past the entrance, so let's just go back now. After going through so many twists and turns, they were also extremely exhausted. They didn't know when the demonic beast tide would finish, so the earlier they left, the better. Bailey Honghao and the rest didn't object. Running practically all day and all night had left them completely drained them. Resting was the best course of action. The four returned to Azure Water School. Because of the demonic beast tide, no demonic beast tried to attack them. Heimu stared at the empty cliff, his eyes filled with terror. His attractive face was completely ashen. He peered down the cliff, the clouds and mist hindering his sight. Underneath, there was a cool drizzle. If Bailey Hongzhuang fell off from here, there was simply no chance of survival. The young master had instructed him to carefully guard Bailey Honghao before he left, so for the past few days, he had always been secretly watching her. In order to not influence Bailey Honghao's training, he made sure to keep a set distance from Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang's performance was always stunning and never needed his help. But he never expected that there would suddenly be a demonic beast wave. Even though he was powerful, the demonic beast tide was still extremely difficult to deal with. Although he desperately wanted to save Bailey Honghao, they were simply too far away. Bailey Honghao was the woman his young master liked. Heimu kneeled beside the cliff, his dark eyes filled with despair and self-blame. His young master trusted him and gave Miss Bailey for him to protect. But not only did he fail to protect Miss Bailey, but even let her die in the demonic beast tide. Thinking up to here, he hated that it wasn't him who had fallen off the cliff. Like this, what face would he have when he saw the young master? But he couldn't do anything. Even if he were to commit suicide for forgiveness, he would still have to report to the young master first. Heimu slowly got up. Although his face was extremely unsightly, his steps were still firm as he left Luo Xiao Mountain. Debaichen listened to Heimu's report, the handsome smile on his face abruptly stiffening. His bright, clear eyes turned dark as if all of its light was engulfed by darkness, engulfed in a terrifying storm. You said Honghao died in the demonic beast tide? His handsome face had frozen over, the smile on his face cold and iniquitous. His eyes were locked on Heimu, an enormous, terrifying power pressing onto him. The room trembled from the pressure, the atmosphere cold and dreadful. And Debaichen's face was even more frightful. Young master, your servant is incompetent. Heimu kneeled with both knees. He had no excuse. In fact, just standing in front of Debei, Chan unharmed was already extremely shameful. Chapter 275 Debaichen's face was terribly gloomy. To think that talented, cunning, black-bellied woman, that strong, resolute, and decisive woman, the wife that he, Debaichen, had given his commitment to, would fall. Bang! Debaichen's palms struck the table case made from top-quality pear wood, the terrible energy of his strength spreading out. Heimu, who was exposed to the shock, directly flew to the wall, spraying blood heavily, which poured down to the ground. And that table case has long been turned into powder. Heimu rose up from the ground. Supporting his injured body, he kneeled once again in front of Debaichen. He failed to protect the young master's most important person. His crime deserved 1,000,000 deaths. Eyes that were indifferent and incisive, like a wolf on the prairie, flashing like cold daggers, with boundless killing intent. However, Dibei Chun eventually waved his sleeves. We leave for Azure Water School. As long as he did not see the corpse of Bailey Hongzhuang, he will not believe that wise and clever person will fall. But young master, you are now. He Mu had yet to finish his words, that hawk-like falcon-sharp eyes had been locked on him. If he dared to say another word, silence. He Mu did not dare to say any more words. The young master, not killing him has been beyond his expectations. If he dared to say more, the young master will not be lenient. But now is the critical moment for the young master to recover his right. If he leaves now, no doubt it will be a lot more trouble. Looking at Dibei Chan, whose eyes showed firmness and decisiveness, He Mu understood. The young master has settled his mind on it. It seems that he still underestimated the significance of Miss Bailey on his young master's heart. Originally, although he felt that the young master is quite different to Miss Bailey, other people do not know, but he's very clear that the young master and Miss Bailey are husband and wife in name only and are not husband and wife for real. Thus he did not regard Miss Bailey as a true young madam. It now appears that Miss Bailey is the genuine young madam. Thinking until here, He Mu's heart sank. All of this is blamed on him. Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4 people rushed for a few days on the road. Because the entrance of the road was being occupied by demonic beasts, they can only walk around it, wasting a lot of time. On the way, almost everyone is talking about the demonic beast tide. From some people showing grievous expressions, it could be seen that they must have relatives who had died at the Luo Yin Mountain. Azure Water City. When Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4 people arrived in Azure Water City, eyes showing surprise or delight fell on them along the road. Gong Xiaoqing and the rest as Azure Water School representatives, the news of them going into the Luo Yin Mountain to accomplish the mercenary task has long been known. Almost everyone is concerned whether they can return safely, because it is too difficult to escape from the demonic beast tide. In this half a month's time, the school's male and female students are simply worried. Dongfang Yu and Gong Xiaoqing are the objects of love for many female students. Even if they're not close enough, they are still their heart's fantasy. If the objects of their fantasy are gone, then their days in Azure Water School would be more boring. Lu Qinyue is also the dream of many men in Azure Water School, worthy to be called their dream lover. Even though many people know about Lu Qinyue's love for Gong Xiaoqing, this still cannot stop their inner fantasy. Not only Lu Qinyue, the newly enrolled Bailey Hongzhuang is also the object of affection for many men. On the appearance, on the beauty, Bailey Hongzhuang compared to Lu Qinyue is in no way inferior. Lu Qinyue already has a person she likes, but Bailey Hongzhuang is a new enrollee. They are full of hope. Chapter 276. Gong Xiaoqing's squad of 4 was comprised almost all of the dreams of the Azure Water School students. If this squad of 4 died in the Luo Yin mountain range, then they'd really grieve. Therefore, the moment when Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4 returned to Azure Water City, voices of excitement slowly followed and spread. Senior Dongfang and the others have safely returned. All of them are safe and sound. I did say that with their strength, they'd definitely be all right. At least I can breathe easy now. These past few days, I haven't been able to rest well. Today, I can finally sleep easy. Ah, the goddess of my dreams. I feel it's my fortune to be able to see her once again. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Her lips carried a hint of playfulness. The college was filled with a youthful atmosphere and gave people a refreshing feeling. In the Azure Water School, the reputation of Dongfang Yu and the other 2 were not just hot air. Speaking of which, it is commendable that so many students worried about their safety. Master, amongst the crowd there are many that are happy because you've safely returned. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang seemed to think that these discussions were entirely because of the other 3, Little Black couldn't help but give a reminder. As its master, how could she become a supporting character? According to rumors, Bailey Hongzhuang slightly arched her eyebrows. Then after spending a total of 3 days at the Azure Water School, other than Xia Jijia and the special enrollment students, she knew no one else. Master, right now your reputation is equal to Lu Qinyue's. the object of admiration for countless men. Ha ha! Little Black touched his head with both paws, his eyes bent into crescents. In just a few days, so many people have Master in their thoughts. In the future, Master will become popular with the entire school. I don't know how many men will be captivated by her. With this, though, Little Black couldn't help but be a bit proud. The four didn't tarry and swiftly walked into the Azure Water School. Running about for such a long time, everyone was exhausted. We first report to our teacher. This time, with the sudden appearance of the beast tide, I don't know how many students were at the Luo Yun mountain range. I'm afraid the teachers are very anxious. Gong Xiaoqing's calm and wise eyes flickered in thought. As a senior student of the Azure Water School, and being familiar with the teacher, he understood what he should do. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others nodded slightly. Presumably, the teachers were also very worried about their safety in the past few days. When Bailey Hongzhuang's group of four arrived at the teacher's office, Lu Huayin and Fu Hongbo saw the four of them were safe, and a touch of joy reached their eyes. Fu Hongbo promptly checked all four from head to toe. After determining that none of the four were seriously injured, he patted Gong Xiaoqing's and Dong Fangyu's shoulders. It's great that everyone could come back safe and sound. Lu Huayin sighed in relief. When they found out about the beast tide, they then knew that the situation wasn't good. They also learned that Gong Xiaoqing's groups and Cui Haoyan's group went to the Luo Yun mountain range. In the past few days, they have been very nervous. The Azure Water School's special enrollment students can be said as the class the school has the most expectations in. If two groups are lost at the same time, then it really would. Teacher, has Cui Haoyan's group returned? Dong Fangyu asked softly. Fu Hongbo sighed and shook his head. They haven't returned yet. I went to inquire about the team, but did not receive any news. Dong Fangyu's face sank slightly. Though they often compete and bet with Cui Haoyan and the others, in private their relationship is very good since they are all brothers. Chapter 277. If Cui Haoyan and the others met with trouble in the Luo Yun mountain range, they wouldn't feel good either. They will definitely safely return, Bailey Hongzhuang said gently, her voice full of reassurance and comfort. At this point, they've done everything they could do and can only sit and wait for new information to come. Fu Hongbo nodded slightly. His dignified face was solemn. This time, the number of students tempering themselves in the Luo Yun mountain range was not a few. As of now, those that have returned numbered no more than 10. With these words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' hearts sank. Though they may not have known each other, they are all students of the Azure Water School. They also hope that the others will be safe. The school's losses this time aren't small. It was evident from the dark circles under Lu Huayan's eyes that he didn't rest well these past few days. This time, even the principal and vice principal were alarmed. Bailey's Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes flashed. In regards to the principal and vice principal, she had a certain understanding. Azure Water School's principal, Ren Tianxiong, is a strong person. He is usually behind closed doors practicing. Unless there's something very important happening, he ordinarily wouldn't appear. The teachers are responsible for almost all the matters relating to the school. Vice Principal Huan Chuyu is a formidable rank 4 alchemist. In particular, his refinement skills can be regarded as having attained the height of perfection. Even in Fengbo country, the strongest alchemists are not higher than rank 4. Thus, this shows how formidable Huan Chuyu is. But this vice principal also immerses himself in studying the art of refinement all year long. Generally, towards the matters of the school, he also wouldn't lend his hand. This time, with both the principal and vice principal appearing together, the impact of the beast tide could be seen. If the loss of students this time is too high, perhaps we should slightly lower the threshold and recruit some students again. Lu Huayan's showed a bit of tiredness and helplessness. This sort of situation has never happened before in the history of the Azure Water School. There's always risks with students venturing out to temper themselves. In the past, it's not that there weren't practitioners that have died, but compared to this time, the loss is too big. They almost didn't even know how to explain it. Gong Xiaoqing and the others had a touch of shock on their faces. Unexpectedly, they might once again admit students? From this point, they understood that this matter was extremely serious. The four of you must be tired after hurrying back here. Go and take a good rest first, Fu Hongbo said with concern. From the weariness these kids inadvertently showed, one could see that they definitely rushed back at top speed. Their bodies had long been overworked and must get a good rest. Then we will go back first. If there's a need, don't hesitate to call us. Gong Xiaoqing's handsome and cold face was full of sincerity. His firm gaze was full of reliability. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows, clear eyes revealing a bit of surprise. Originally, she thought that the cold-blooded Gong Xiaoqing would only practice by himself. She didn't expect for him to care so much about the school. Bailey Hongzhuang returned to the dormitory. She lied on her bed, her body completely limp. Xiaohei and Xiaoba, as well as Baisher, each found a comfortable place to lay down. Bailey Hongzhuang breathed deeply. With these few days of rushing back with such high intensity, her body showed a hint of discomfort. She had to enhance the physical strength of her body. Thinking of this point, Bailey Hongzhuang left her soft bed. From the primordial chaos ring, she retrieved a large tub. After boiling some hot water, she poured the previously prepared body-tempering medicinal liquid into the tub. Chapter 278. Now her body was in a state of completely exhaustion. This kind of situation is exactly the best for absorbing the medical efficacy. Following the addition of the emerald green liquid, the originally clear water was slowly dyed with a slight shade of emerald green. The green color continued to spread in the water. It blended into the water, causing it to turn into an emerald green concoction. Bailey Hongzhuang stepped into the tub, warm liquid enveloping her body. Under the warmth of the hot water, her once strained muscles gradually relaxed. The medicine surged into the body through the pores, constantly enhancing the capabilities of the cells. Bailey Hongzhuang closed her eyes. This is also a type of enjoyment. The process of absorbing the medicine is not painful. On the contrary, it was very comfortable. However, to successfully absorb the medicine, it is necessary for one to utterly exhaust every bit of strength in their body. This is not an easy thing to do. In this comfortable environment, Bailey Hongzhuang could help but fall into a deep sleep. It slowly turned into night, sky full of stars shining brightly. Creak! A small sound came from outside the window. Bailey Hongzhuang still kept her eyes closed. She's been too tired these past few days, so she fell into a deep sleep once she relaxed. Master! Little Black shouted to Bailey Hongzhuang through a spiritual transmission. To visit so late at night, that person probably doesn't have good intentions. Master! Little Black continuously called out twice before Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows twitched, regaining consciousness in a short amount of time. Her phoenix eyes were as deep as a tranquil lake with a trace of coldness. One hand grabbed the clothes next to her and covered her body. With flowing white clothing and cascading ink-like hair, she was like a watercolor landscape painting, both elegant and charming. At the same time, a figure in white appeared inside the house. Wifey. The familiar voice gave Bailey Hongzhuang a shock. In her line of sight, Debachin still wore a soft white robe decorated with dark plum blossoms, looking fresh and refined. His handsome, godlike face held a mischievousness smile, star-like pupils shining brightly and giving off an infinite brilliance. It's just that Debachin's upturned eyebrows revealed a hint of ridicule and teasing. Bailey Hongzhuang became aware of the embarrassing situation she was in. Almost all the clothes covering her are white, and her body was partially visible. Debachin's two star-like eyes were clearly beginning to turn into a smoldering gaze. His sight locked on her body. A determinately ambiguous atmosphere filled the air, entering in the middle of the night, and not even through the front door. This isn't the actions of a gentleman. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows slightly turned. Her black lacquer-like eyes didn't show any nervousness. In fact, it was rather abnormally calm. Bei Chen's beautiful thin lips curved into an evil smile. His eyes unscrupulously eyed Bailey Hongzhuang up and down. I am your husband. Is there something wrong with coming into your room late at night? Bei Chen's current mood is very good, exceptionally good. On the way here, his face had been sullen and his heart uneasy. But upon arriving at the Azure Water School, he heard students talk about Bailey Hongzhuang's safe return. His heart went wild with joy, yet was still somewhat unsettled. He only wanted to quickly rush to see Bailey Hongzhuang, so didn't even think about knocking the door and just directly came in through the window. The moment he saw Bailey Hongzhuang, his heart went from the depths of hell to the top of the heavens. It's just that seeing such a charming and tempting picture in front of him, he became a bit restless. Bailey Hongzhuang choked. You do know we aren't really an actual couple. We weren't before. That doesn't mean we aren't now. Bei Chen slightly raised his handsome eyebrows, his star-like eyes flashing with a cunningly ambiguous look. Actually, hubby wants wifey to give birth to my child. Chapter 279 in a flash. All the demonic beasts flew away in front of Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Bai Shi, who was on her shoulder. His face was filled with pride and anticipation as he happily rubbed against Bailey Hongzhuang, clearly wanting praise. But Bailey Hongzhuang just smacked Bai Shi's head, retorting angrily, You could have just roared and solved everything. You almost let your master jump off a cliff. Now, as she remembered how she had given up hope and nearly fell into despair, this little guy could have long fixed everything with just a call. When the eagerly awaiting Bai Shi was smacked instead of rewarded, his big, watery eyes filled with a misty sheen as his little mouth formed a pout. Its small body curled up in Bailey Hongzhuang's bosom, appearing very pitiful. Even though she knew that the little guy was deliberately acting pitiful, Bailey Hongzhuang no longer had the heart to scold him anymore, instead of taking out the demonic crystal from the armored rhinoceros to give to Bai Shi. The tears in his eyes instantly disappeared when he saw the crystal. His eyes shined brightly as he immediately snatched the crystal and began to gnaw on it. Really, this guy truly was best at acting cute. Bailey Hongzhuang put Bai Shi back onto her shoulders. Her plight was over, but what about Gong Shaoqing and the others? Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to leave, she suddenly heard a small sound. Her eyes turned cold. There was actually somebody here. Bailey Hongzhuang's spirit power surged through her body as she cautiously approached the direction of the sound, prepared to fight. At the back of the mountain, a big boulder blocked her sight. The other person was clearly behind that boulder. Who's there? Her cold voice was laced with a warning as she stared at the rock. Miss, I'm only here to avoid the demonic beast tide. A hoarse, low voice came from behind the boulder, causing Bailey Hongzhuang to frown a little. From her voice, she could tell that he was in a weak state and injured. Life-threateningly injured. Bailey Hongzhuang's dark eyes were sharp. She did not want Bai Shi's secret to be exposed. Holding the ice-chilling sword, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly sneaked past the boulder. A man was lying on the boulder, black hair pouring down in torrents beside him. His handsome face was like a piece of art carved by the gods themselves, sword-like eyebrows long and straight like a willow. His eminent eyes were deep like a black hole, cold and ruthless. He was wearing a soft black robe, the color deep and inky, propitious clouds embroidered on it with silver thread. It was luxurious yet subdued. The man's robes were slightly loose, revealing his exquisite collarbones and chin, radiating sex appeal. If you looked down just a bit, dark blood had already dyed the robes red. With only a glance, Bailey Hongzhuang could already tell the injury was very serious. But even in such a situation, the man actually still smiled. His smile was cold and violent, but it was still impossible to deny his handsome face, still filled with charm and fascination. In short, this man was extremely dangerous. Bailey Hongzhuang's intuition told her that the man wasn't simple and wouldn't allow himself to be touched. It's better to just leave. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang turned around to leave, an icy voice rang. Woman, why don't we make a deal? A trace of interest flitted past Moyun Ju's dark eyes. When he saw Bailey Honghaung and Bai Shi, he thought they were rather interesting. Chapter 280, however. It was like the two circles were stamped onto Little Black's white furred face, with blushers, bright red and eye-catching. We didn't see anything, nothing at all. What did you guys see? Bailey Hongzhuang held her forehead with her hand. The shame, the shame. Little Black ran back and forth on the table, bashfully covered his cheeks. Don't know, no one has seen anything. Do I believe that? Bailey Hongzhuang was helpless, while Little Black and Little White were continuing to act bashful without end. The white lion had long gone to sleep, although his eyes were still trembling. It seems that she can no longer take a bath in her room. Knock, knock, knock. Urgent knocks came from the door. Bailey Hongzhuang slightly wrinkled her eyebrows. This guy hasn't left yet? Opening the door, Bailey Hongzhuang discovered that it wasn't Di Bei Chun standing outside, but Xia Jiqing instead. Hongzhuang, it's a relief that you're okay. Xia Jiqing's pretty face was filled with excitement. She opened her arms and directly gave Bailey Hongzhuang a big hug. Hearing the news about the demonic beast tide really scared me. Looking at the worry and lament in Xia Jiqing's eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang felt a little warmth in her heart. Even though the trip to the Luo Yin mountain range was filled with danger, coming back and seeing her friend being so worried made her feel very happy. I am very lucky. How could I die so easily? Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth curved into a brilliant smile. Once I got news about your safe return, I immediately rushed over. I'm glad to see that you are fine. Am I disturbing your rest? Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head slightly. I've already had a good rest. Under the effects of the medicine, every cell in her body was relaxed and strengthened. It was a moment of unspeakable comfort. After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang speak so calmly, Xia Jiqing's pretty face bloomed with a bright smile. What in the world was going on with this demonic beast tide? Both of them sat on the edge of the bed, and Xia Jiqing asked Bailey Hongzhuang about her experiences in the Luo Yun mountain range. After she recounted the terror of the demonic beast tide in detail, Xia Jiqing was once again scared. It was fortunate that she wasn't strong enough and couldn't go to the Luo Yun mountain range, or else she would have already lost her life. That guy, Bai Junyu, still hasn't returned. Xia Jiqing's were filled with worry. Even though she didn't have a good impression of this guy, Bai Junyu, he was still her friend. Naturally, it was inevitable that she would worry. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes sank slightly. Due to the demonic beast tide, the number of injured and dead practitioners were many. If it wasn't because of the timely appearance of the white tiger, showing his authority, she didn't know how she would have ended up. One could only hope that Bai Junyu and the others would be able to make it back safely. Bai Junyu and the others' strength isn't weak. They should be able to return safely. I hope so. Xia Jiqing faintly sighed. The world is unpredictable. Recently, the entire Azure Water School had an oppressive atmosphere, especially when a report came in that a certain student died. Her inky black phoenix eyes were heavy. Bailey Hongzhuang also understood. These days, the practitioners of the Azure Water School didn't feel well in their hearts. After the two talked for a while, Xia Jiqing didn't leave, and both directly went to sleep. The next day, the two heard light footsteps, faintly mixed with anxious voices coming from the corridor. Bailey Hongzhuang and Xia Jiqing glanced at each other, eyes filled with a questioning look. After cleaning up a bit, they opened the door. They only saw Bai Junyu's door opened with Dongfang Yu and the others gathered inside the room. You're here. Dongfang Yu's constantly sunny face looked as if it was covered with dark clouds, heavy and full of haze. Chapter 281, Bai Junyu returned. Her clear and bright eyes held a touch of concern. If not so, everyone wouldn't have gathered here. Dongfang Yu nodded slightly. Cui Haoyan and Bai Junyu are seriously injured. Zhang Yunfeng's situation is a little better, and another person has died. Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes narrowed. Compared to before, This result was much better than what they had expected. However, hearing that another person died, her heart couldn't help but skip a beat. Are Bai Junyu and Cui Haoyan's injuries serious? Bailey Hongzhuang knitted her eyebrows. Their dormitory wasn't small, but at the moment both teachers and students were all gathered here, thus couldn't see the situation inside. Very serious, especially Cui Haoyan. Vice Principal is diagnosing and giving him treatment right now. Hopefully he'll be all right. Her perceptive and bright eyes flashed. Vice Principal, rank 4 alchemist. To date, she is yet to see the Vice Principal's true ability. Bailey Hongzhuang explained the situation to Xia Jiqing before slowly walking towards the dormitory room. She also wanted to see Cui Haoyan's and Bai Junyu's injuries and perhaps be of some help. When Gong Shaoqing and the others caught sight of her, they slightly nodded their heads, but otherwise said nothing. At the moment, the vice principal was in the midst of diagnosing Cui Haoyan's condition. They were afraid of disturbing him, so they didn't make a sound. When Bailey Hongzhuang caught sight of Cui Haoyan's and Bai Junyu's appearances, her eyes faltered and a look of shock appeared on her face. She only saw Bai Junyu's pale face, ragged clothing, and bared skin covered in scars. Almost no part was unscathed. Dark red blood stained his clothes, giving off a tragic aura. It could be seen from the scars that the flesh on his right shoulder was bitten off by a demonic beast. It's a miracle Bai Junyu could survive with such a serious injury. However, his injuries weren't the worst. Cui Haoyan's injuries were the most serious. She only saw Cui Haoyan's dark complexion and festering wounds on every inch of his chest that were obviously due to the corroding nature of a toxin. Now the toxin had already quickly permeated through his entire body. Large rotted sections of skin were horrifying to the eyes, and even the blood from his body was black. Vice President, can their injuries be healed? Gong Shaoqing's brows wrinkled, his voice nervous and worried. Huan Chuyo's wise eyes held a sense of heaviness. As long as Bai Junyu can survive past this critical point, he'll be able to live. Cui Haoyan, the toxin he was infected with, even I can't tell what kind of poison it is within a short period of time. I could only give him a detoxification pill before researching the poison. Only, I don't know if this child can survive until I can find solution. His words caused the hearts of everyone present to sink. Zhang Yinfeng even lost control and started to cry. It was my fault. It was because of saving me that the poisonous python landed an attack on Cui Haoyan. Zhang Yunfeng's tears were endlessly dropping down like pearls from a broken necklace. I was me who hurt him. Lu Qinyue patted Zhang Yunfeng's shoulders. Yunfeng, this was no one's fault. You shouldn't blame yourself. However, Zhang Yunfeng still stubbornly believed. It was all because of me. I would rather the person lying on the bed be me. Qinyue, give Bai Junyu the recovering yuan pill from a medicine box, the vice principal said. Yes, master. Lu Qinyue opened the medical box and pulled out one of the white porcelain bottles within, easily retrieving the recovering yuan pill and feeding it to Bai Junyu. Bailey Hongzhuang's dazzling pitch-black phoenix eyes showed a glint of astonishment. She looked at Lu Qinyin with surprise. It turns out that the vice principal was Lu Qinyue's master. Chapter 282. It was understandable that Lu Qinyue was already a rank 2 alchemist at her age. It turned out that she has a rank 4 alchemist as a master. Azure Water School's special enrollment student, rank 2 alchemist, as well as the vice principal's disciple. With all these identities, it was no wonder Lu Qinyue's prestige in the Azure Water School was so high, and many people saw her as the goddess in their hearts. Huan Chuyo's eyes fell on Zhang Yunfeng. You said Cui Haoyan was attacked by a poisonous python? What did that poisonous python look like? It was exactly the case that he didn't know what demonic beast the toxin came from. Once known, he'd be able to prescribe the appropriate medicine. After all, the detoxification pill was not an all-purpose cure. Targeted medicinal pills are much more effective. That poisonous python was about 20 meters long, as thick as a basin, and body covered in green scales, Zhang Yunfeng quickly explained. Lulin Python. Huan Chuyo's eyes narrowed. He didn't expect it to be the Lulin Python. Bailey Hongzhuang also immediately recognized the demonic beast Zhang Yinfeng described. Lulin Python, a demonic beast with monstrous strength and highly toxic poison. The Lulin Python lived in the Luo Yun mountain range. Usually, with where they shouldn't have been able to come in contact with the Lulin Python. This time, because of the demonic beast tide, the demonic beast came out in full force, and so Cui Haoyin and the others ended up encountering it. The Lulin Python's poison was strong and tyrannical. The usual method wouldn't be able to detoxify it at all. Huan Chuyu faintly sighed, his wise and affable face stricken with helplessness and deep regret. Although he was a rank 4 alchemist, the pill formulas he had on hand were limited. In ancient times, alchemy was very prosperous, and various pill formulas and medicinal pills would emerge quickly and endlessly. Detoxifying the Lulin Python's poison was also not impossible. Now, however, the pill formula that could have been used for treatment had already disappeared. Even he was at wit's end. Looking at Huan Chuyo's expression, everyone's heart skipped a beat. Zhang Yinfeng was even more unwilling to wipe the tears from his eyes. His demeanor was extremely tense. Vice Principal, Cui Haoyin, can he still be saved? I can only try my best, but the chances aren't high. Zhang Yinfeng paled. Even the rank 4 alchemist vice principal said the chances weren't high. Then didn't that mean? Thinking of this, tears poured from Zhang Yunfeng's eyes. Vice principal, is there no other way? Gong Xiaoqing asked. Unless we can find a rank 5 alchemist or a doctor who knows the vibrating needle technique. Hearing this, everyone's hearts sank. It was widely known that the person with the strongest alchemy skills is the vice president. Where would they go and find a rank 5 alchemist? As for a doctor knowing the vibrating needle technique, now even doctors that know basic acupuncture are quickly disappearing, not to mention the vibrating needle technique. Of these two methods, none were feasible and were equivalent to having no solutions at all. Then what can we do? Zhang Yinfeng choked up, bursting into tears. Xia Jiqing curiously looked at Zhang Yinfeng. Does this Zhang Yinfeng like Cui Haoyin? Dongfang Yu slightly nodded, looking helpless and grief-stricken. Zhang Yinfeng has always adored Cui Haoyin. However, he usually doesn't show it much. Now, I'm afraid there's no hope of showing it. Ah, Xia Jiqing was surprised for a moment. She had only suspected, but didn't think it would turn out to be true. So pitiful. The Luo Yi mountain range was so full of danger. It really makes people sigh in sorrow. It was at this time, when everyone fell into despair, that Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked up to Cui Haoyin. A trace of surprise crossed Huan Chuyo's calm and carefree eyes. What does this little girl want to do, standing out now? I'll try. Python is probably used because of the sheer size of the demonic beast. Its characteristics are more like a viper. Pythons are more constricting you to death, while some viper species are known to cause necrosis. Alert! Do not Google this as you have a weak stomach. Dash at Alicia. Chapter 283. Her beautiful and delicate face was brimming with self-confidence and assurance. Although her current cultivation was nothing to talk about, she has absolute confidence in her medical skills. She and Cui Haoyin are close. In fact, he looked down on her, although not maliciously. Since everyone was from the same class and Cui Haoyin was also good friends with Dongfang Yu and the others, she couldn't sit still and do nothing. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone's eyes landed on her. The room was suddenly so quiet you could hear a pin drop. If the vice principal wasn't here, they really want to ask Bailey Hongzhuang if she was joking. Gong Xiaoqing, Lu Qinyue, Dongfang Yu, and Xia Jiqing were dumbfounded as they looked at her. They had some doubts about what they'd just heard. From their understanding of Bailey Hongzhuang, she wouldn't say anything without thought. However, believing that Bailey Hongzhuang had a method for detoxification was really hard. Huan Chuyu curiously sized up the little girl in front of him. She just stood there without saying a word, but was still radiant. It was impossible to ignore her. Right now, in front of him, she said such incredible words and yet still maintains an indifferent expression. Her face shined dazzlingly, looking self-confident and assured. This was a look full of confidence and strength. You have a way to detoxify, Cui Haoyan. Huan Chuyo's eyes gleamed with kindness and wisdom. He had a feeling the little girl wasn't just giving lip service. Seeing that Huan Chuyu had such a good attitude towards Bailey Hongzhuang, jealously lit up in many people's eyes. In the Azure Water School, if you could get the recognition of the principal or vice principal, you'd be able to reach the heavens in one step. For the sake of attracting the attention of the vice principal, this Bailey Hongzhuang is really daring. What's the use of attracting it now? If she isn't able to treat Cui Haoyan's poison, isn't that equivalent to giving yourself a slap in the face? Zhang Yunfeng's eyes flashed with bewilderment. Bailey Hongzhuang. It's the moment of life or death for Cui Haoyan. It's not an opportunity for you to show off. Cui Haoyan's condition is so serious that he won't be able to hang on for much longer. To delay the vice principal from looking for a treatment, Bailey Hongzhuang is really detestable. In Zhang Yunfeng's heart, there was no belief that Bailey Hongzhuang, who was so young, would be able to cure Cui Haoyan at all at rank 5 alchemist? It's simply impossible for Bailey Hongzhuang. Vibrating needle technique? That's even more impossible for Bailey Hongzhuang. Since it's not either one, wasn't she just grandstanding right now? Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Zhang Yunfeng with indifference, not caring. She just looked towards Huan Chuyu. I have a way. Then you try, Huan Chuyu said kindly. He is actually curious of what kind of trump card this little girl has to make her so confident. Is it possible that she has a rank 5 alchemist at her call? To Huan Chuyu, this possibility felt the most likely. Vice Principal, Zhang Yunfeng wanted to put a stop to it. She really didn't understand what the Vice Principal was thinking. Bailey Hongzhuang making trouble could be dismissed, but for the Vice Principal to even agree? Huan Chuyu slightly lifted his right hand, stopping Zhang Yunfeng from talking. With eyes that were as soft as water revealed a look of doubt and surprise, Lu Qinyue secretly criticized. Master, what is this? Bailey Hongzhuang moved to Cui Haoyan's side and thoroughly observed his condition, leaving behind all distracting thoughts and becoming very serious. Cui Haoyan had been wounded for quite some time and was hanging on to live by using medicinal pills. By now, the toxin had already permeated through more than half his body. If the poison isn't detoxified by today, he won't have a chance of survival. With her right hand covering Cui Haoyan's, Bailey Hongzhuang quietly took his pulse. She had to clearly understand the extent of the injury before being able to start treatment. Chapter 284. Lin Jiesin had a ridiculing smile on her face. Bailey Hongzhuang is quite good at pretending. I want to see how she'll continue this play. A burst of silence fell over everyone. It was obvious that only a master would be able to treat Cui Haoyan's condition. Bailey Hongzhuang is honestly a far cry from one, and so there is no way they'd be convinced. After a moment, Bailey Hongzhuang released her hand. With a flip of her hand, she retrieved a needle box from within her yin-yang pouch and spread it open on the bed. Silver needles of various sizes appeared in everyone's vision. A look of surprise crossed their faces. They didn't think that Bailey Hongzhuang really carried a needle box. Bailey Hongzhuang faintly shot a glance at Ling Jiesin. She didn't recognize this woman. However, ever since she appeared, loathing and hostility flowed from this woman's eyes. Feeling Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes on her, Ling Jiesin stiffened. She didn't get her composure back until Bailey Hongzhuang turned her eyes away. She thought in her heart, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes are really sharp. It was as if she saw through her in a single instant. She was surprised for a moment before her eyes were once again filled with loathing. She already heard from Lu Jingquan that Bailey Hongzhuang dared to kill Yunyang's little sister. It was really hateful. Girl, you know the art of acupuncture? Huan Chiyou's profound eyes revealed a trace of wonder. This was the only explanation as to why Bailey Hongzhuang carries a needle box with her. To his knowledge, those who have mastered the art of acupuncture are rare. let alone that. Bailey Hongzhuang was also so young. Whether it's medical skills of alchemy skills, you would need many years of hard training. Without a rich foundation as well as a solid understanding of medical knowledge, it would be impossible to master. Bailey Hongzhuang was very young. She probably hasn't been able to learn much. Bailey Hongzhuang slightly nodded, confirming Huan Chuyo's words. The poison Cui Haoyan was infected with was extremely potent and strong. It would be a bit lacking if you just rely on acupuncture. Huan Chuyo's gaze fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. His words were a warning to her. Rest assured, Vice Principal, I have it under control. Bailey Hongzhuang had an indifferent look on her face. Huan Chuyo's words did not cause her even a slight bit of nervousness. She had encountered a Lulin python before and even specifically extracted its poison. Of course, it was no problem for her to detoxify the poison. Ling Jinxin's eyes held contempt. She didn't think this Bailey Hongzhuang would be so arrogant, behaving so impudently right in front of the vice principal's face. Bailey Hongzhuang, it can't be that you're telling us that you know acupuncture, right? Ling Jinxin sneered. Do you think all of us are idiots? Bailey Hongzhuang slightly lifted her eyebrow, her gaze sharp as she looked directly at Ling Jiesin. Even though she didn't know why this girl was hostile towards her, since it is someone who hates her, then they are enemies. You should stop blowing your own trumpet. With so many people present, only an idiot like you would keep blindly barking. Her indifferent words chilled one to the bones with their disdain and intolerance. It was as though speaking another word to Ling Jiesin would be a waste of time. But Dongfang, you couldn't help but start laughing. The others also couldn't refrain from laughing, lips twitching uncontrollably. When Bailey Hongzhuang said to stop blowing your trumpet, they still didn't quite understand. So Bailey Hongzhuang was saying that it was fine if Ling Jiesin wants to be an idiot by herself, but she actually wanted to drag the rest of them along with her. Xia Jiqing's face was filled with laughter. She always saw Bailey Hongzhuang with a coolly indifferent expression on her face. Who knew that once she starts talking, her words would be so poisonous? Chapter 285. Ling Jiesin's face contorted. She didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to actually have the gall to curse at her so bluntly. She didn't even give the vice principal any face. Don't be too excessive, Ling Jiesin said with a sullen expression. She couldn't afford to lose her face in front of all these people, who all had some status within the Azure Swelling Water School. Cui Haoyan is your senior. Life is precious. Yet you treat Cui Haoyan's life according to your own selfish desires. Are you still human? Ling Jiesin wasn't stupid. With just a few words, Bailey Hongzhuang had gotten the others to separate from her. At least Zhang Yunfeng stood by her side. Sure enough, Zhang Yunfeng's body began trembling as her eyes seethed with rage. I'm selfish. The black as ink phoenix eyes mocked the hateful light. How am I selfish? I don't understand. You've decided to cause a scene after becoming unable to impress the vice principal? I've already seen through this kind of underhanded trickery. Ling Jiesin had an aloof appearance as she raised her chin while paying attention to Huan Chuyu, taking care to make herself look as if she were full of grace and wisdom. Such foolishness. You really don't know about yourself. This is quite worrisome. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head, pretending to be lamenting. In her mind, however, she was completely ridiculing her. What are you talking about? Ling Jiesin was startled. Her mind still didn't understand. Bailey Hongzhuang was clearly in a disadvantageous position, but why did she still look so proud? No matter how much she thought, she still couldn't find a problem with her words. Our vice principal is wise. If I was just trying to make things complicated, wouldn't he easily see through it? Her beautiful face was filled with mockery. Maybe you would do such a disgraceful thing, but I wouldn't. Her voice was filled with contempt, confident and decisive. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was cold as she spoke, every word spoken like a statement, leaving no room for debate. Ling Jiesin's face changed. She opened her mouth in protest, but couldn't find anything to say. Because if she said Bailey Hongzhuang's words were wrong, it'd be the same thing as saying the vice principal was dumb. Gong Xiaoqing's face changed a little. They really hadn't believed in Bailey Honghao's medicinal skills, but after hearing her argument, they were reassured. If Bailey Honghao didn't have the skills, she wouldn't put up such a strong fight. Ling Jiasin couldn't talk back. She simply had no way to refute Bailey Hongzhuang. If she said Bailey Honghao was wrong, it was no different from saying that the vice principal wasn't wise enough. Thinking up to here, Ling Jiasin could only stare at Bailey Hongzhuang hatefully. She actually never thought that Bailey Honghao would have such a good mouth. Yu Chuyu looked at the two glaring at each other and didn't speak. As a vice principal, he had seen many students like that, but this Bailey Hongzhuang seemed very confident in her skills. There were some geniuses in the world that simply couldn't be thought of with common sense, young talents reaching heights others would never even dream of. Maybe this girl was such a person. The originally condemning Zhao Yunfeng no longer spoke. The vice principal's silence meant he made a decision. Bailey Honghao took out her silver needles from her wrap, accurately pricking Cui Haoyan's acupuncture point. Everybody's heart jumped. Bailey Honghao was only 15 years old, so her medical expertise was truly shocking. Chapter 286. If Xiao Zifen and the others were here, then they wouldn't worry. Bailey Hongzhuang's fame as a genius doctor had already spread throughout the imperial city. It need not to be said that her medical skills were high. One after the other, silver needles were inserted in Cui Haoyan's body. As Bailey Hongzhuang was doing the treatment so seriously, doing every action in one go, everyone suddenly felt that it was like she did have medical skills. When Bailey Hongzhuang inserted the first needle, a gleam passed through Huan Chuyo's eyes. This girl's medical skills were definitely not simple. He had seen a physician who mastered acupuncture before. This physician had introduced a few specifics of inserting needles. Fast, stable, accurate, steady hands without a trace of shaking, and the patient would not reveal even the slightest bit of discomfort. Bailey Hongzhuang obviously hit all these points. Even though he didn't really understand medicine, he could generally determine that there were no problems with the acupuncture points she used in the treatment. Before long, Cui Haoyan's body was covered with a mass of silver needles. At first glance, it would make people's scalps tingle. The next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang slightly flicked her right hand above the silver needles. Like magic, all the silver needles began to vibrate in an orderly fashion. Lu Qinyue's calm eyes were filled with astonishment. Vibrating needle technique. She had never seen the true vibrating needle technique before, but have heard her master talk about the vibrating needle technique's characteristics. Thus she recognized it the moment she saw it. The sureness of Lu Qinyue's words caused a stormy feeling to rise in everyone's heart. Vibrating needle technique. Unexpectedly, it was actually the vibrating needle technique. Wasn't it said that the vibrating needle technique had been long lost? In which acupuncture master wasn't an adult who was getting on in their years. Bailey Hongzhuang is but 15 years old, yet mastered the highest level vibrating needle technique. How is this possible? Everyone's lips couldn't help but twitch. Bailey Hongzhuang was really abnormal. Xia Jiqing widened her eyes. Aside from amazement, there was joy on her face. Hongzhuang is nothing less than a god. I really admire her. Bailey Hongzhuang mastered the vibrating needle technique. Doesn't that signify that the poison that stumped even the vice president is solved by Bailey Hongzhuang? Dong Fangyu's shiningly handsome face revealed surprise and marvel. Ever since knowing Bailey Hongzhuang, he felt that she was very different. However, he never thought she would be this incredible. Zhang Yunfeng's face was full of surprise. Looking at that serious figure, a trace of guilt emerged in her heart. All along, Bailey Hongzhuang really wanted to help Cui Haoyan out of the goodness from her heart. She was ashamed of her own attitude. Ling Jiasin's lips looked as if an egg was stuffed into it. She had this expression ever since the moment Bailey Hongzhuang applied the needles. Originally, she wanted to wait for a chance to ridicule Bailey Hongzhuang, making her understand the consequence of overestimating her own abilities. But now, a bad feeling had already crept up on her. A gleam flashed through Huan Chuyo's eyes. It seems that his eyes did not deceive him. Bailey Hongzhuang was really a talented person. The long-lost vibrating needle technique actually appeared in the hands of a teenage girl. It looks like this Bailey Hongzhuang's master must be a terrifying physician. Before, he didn't know that the Azure Water School had such a talented little physician. The Azure Water School was really full of unnoticeable masters. Everyone held their breath. No one dared to disturb Bailey Hongzhuang for fear of affecting her treatment. Everyone clearly saw that following the vibrations of the silver needles, the black portions on Shui Haoyan's body quickly converged towards his left wrist. This black color was very frightening. In an instant, Shui Haoyan's left hand was entirely covered in a frightening deep black that it caused people's hearts to go cold. Chapter 287. Seeing this, an astonished light flashed through Huan Chuyo's eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang really got rid of the poison. The green python's poison was scary because it would infect the body very quickly and was very hard to cure. Bailey Hongzhuang used acupuncture to remove all the poison and gathered all of it together. In this way, she solved the biggest problem. Shui Haoyan was basically saved. At this time, Bailey Hongzhuang turned her head towards Huan Chuyu, who stood beside her. Vice Principal, do you have a blood-replenishing pill? Shui Haoyan was already very weak. There was a lot of blood that was contaminated with the poison. Once all of it was removed, Shui Haoyan would lose a lot of blood and would face another life-threatening crisis. Yes, I can handle this part. Huan Chu looked very focused. This time, there were many people who were injured outside and had lost a lot of blood, so he had refined many blood-replenishing pills. Bailey Hongzhuang lightly nodded her head. The trembling of the silver needles became faster, and the poison in Shui Haoyan's left hand became darker and darker. It was as if there was an earthworm in him that would not stop moving, making everybody's hearts go cold. Just as the silver needles stopped trembling, Bailey Hongzhuang took a sharp knife and cut open Shui Haoyan's wrist. The black blood flowed out from his wrist continuously, and Shui Haoyan's body also slightly twitched. The poisonous blood made small sounds when it made contact with the iron basin. However, even though not all of the poisonous blood had flowed out yet, the iron basin was already completely corroded through by the poison. Seeing this, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. They all knew that Shui Haoyan was poisoned with a very powerful and dangerous poison, but they did not think that the poison was this deadly. No wonder there were rotting wounds all over Shui Haoyan's body. Once the poisonous blood made contact with the floor, it started to corrode the floor. White bubbles kept on appearing, making people's backs go cold. As the poisonous blood left his body, Shui Haoyan's face was no longer as purple-black, but rather it became as white as a sheet of paper. Just as all the poisonous blood was removed, Huan Chuyu put 2 blood-replenishing pills into Shui Haoyan's mouth. Bailey Hongzhuang began to wrap up the cut on Shui Haoyan's wrist. Her actions were very smooth and skilled, and she was very careful and concentrated. It's good now. Bailey Hongzhuang stood up, looking at Huan Chuyu. All the poison has been removed. You can take care of the rest. Shui Haoyan's injuries were very serious. She could only help him remove the poison. If he was to recover at the fastest speed possible, he would need lots of well-refined pills. Even though she could completely cure him, she would have to use more time than Huan Chuyu. Huan Chuyu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with admiration. You are also tired. Go rest. Only now did the crowd realize that Bailey Hongzhuang's forehead was covered with beads of sweat, and her beautifully exquisite face was also pale as snow. Clearly, this medical treatment was not as easy as they all had thought. Bailey Hongzhuang's burden was not small. The corner of Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up in a beautiful smile. Many thanks for Vice Principal's care. In Huan Chuyo's eyes, other than admiration, there was only praise. This little girl would definitely be powerful in the future. If one wanted to achieve such achievements at such an age, Even if the master was extremely strong, if one did not put in effort, then there would still be no use. He simply did not think that Bailey Hongzhuang's actions were made to get his attention. He believed that Bailey Hongzhuang's master would definitely not lose out against him when it came to skills. How could someone weaker than him produce disciples like this? Chapter 288. At this moment, a small moan attracted everybody's attention. The originally unconscious Cui Haoyan suddenly opened his eyes. Although his face still looked very sick, he was definitely much better than before. Cui Haoyan saw everybody staring at him before smiling in relief. He hadn't lost his life on Luoyun Mountain and finally returned to Azure Water School. Zhang Yinfeng immediately ran to Cui Haoyan. "Are you okay?" Cui Haoyan shook his head slightly. "It's tolerable. Right now, he only felt a bit weak. It was far better compared to the sharp pain he had felt earlier. Far, far better." Zhang Yinfeng couldn't help but tear up, the depths of her eyes filled with love. Cui Haoyan's life was finally saved. Cui Haoyan frowned slightly, looking at Zhang Yinfeng tenderly. "I'm still not dead, so why are you crying? Sob. You were so close, so close." Zhang Yunfeng's tense mind finally collapsed as she cried, unable to stop her tears. Just a little bit, and she wouldn't have been able to see Cui Haoyan ever again. The original solemn mood relaxed. Cui Haoyan and Bai Junyu's lives were no longer in danger. This was already extremely lucky. Bailey Honghaon walked beside Xia Jiqing, who emotionally pulled on her hand. "Hongzhuang, you're amazing. Actually knowing that long-lost acupuncture technique." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Even 1,000 years ago, her Bailey family was known for their acupuncture techniques in Guanju continent. It was just too bad that she could never see those doting old elders again. The wall between Zhang Yinfeng and Cui Haoyan can finally be considered to be broken. Bailey Hongzhuang twinkled with a warm smile. Love will find a way, and eventually, everyone will be happy. Dongfang Yu stared at Bailey Hongzhuang's jade-like face, his eyes growing increasingly soft. "All thanks to you." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Her job was already over, so after saying goodbye to Dongfang Yu, she returned to her room. Xia Jiqing also didn't stay. She still needed to attend class. After all, ordinary students didn't have as much freedom in their studies as the special enrollment students. In her room, Bailey Hongzhuang was cultivating the demon calling scripture. After going through a life and death experience at Luoyun Mountains, her cultivation had once again made a great leap. Cultivating comfortably was incomparable to cultivating through experience. Only by going through danger could one grow stronger and improve their cultivation. Sure enough, going to the school really was the right choice. The next day, Bailey Honghaon went to Azure Water City's market. Because it was so close to Azure Water School and students often frequented there, it had almost everything a cultivator would need. Bailey Honghaon carried Bai Shi. The amount of food this guy ate was really enough to make her blush with shame. EU this time, she hadn't really gotten a hunt for demonic beast crystals, so Bai Shi's rations were already running out. The little guy tried every method of acting cute yesterday, rolling about for food, so today she could only go to the market to buy some demonic beast crystals. But the little guy's abilities really were out of the ordinary, so at least her hard-earned savings weren't going to waste. Just as she entered the market, Bailey Hongzhuang's ears were enveloped in noise. There were all kinds of noises as people haggled and fought over prices. It was an extremely lively scene. The city market was clearly specifically managed by somebody. All the booths were properly divided, going as far as the eyes could see. Many of the same booths had different items placed inside, waiting to be brought home. Chapter 289. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't need anything else. This time, she came only for demonic beast crystals. Also, she needed a lot of them. In the city, there weren't many people who sold demonic beast crystals. Most people directly gave their demonic beast crystals to the mercenary trade union. After all, aside from the pill masters, they weren't of much use for the students of Azure Water School. Bailey Hongzhuang strolled through the city. After searching for half a day, she still hadn't found anywhere to get demonic beast crystals. Even if she were to find some, they were the low-ranked ones of 1 or 2 stars. Suddenly, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes landed on a particular vendor stand. All sorts of colorful demonic beast crystals were displayed in the booth. The seller was lazily dozing off from behind the chair. Baisher's eyes instantly grew big once he noticed the demonic beast crystals. His eyes looked like they were drooling as he continuously dug his hands in the air. He looked like he was itching to sleep on top of the demonic beast crystals. Bailey Hongzhuang patted Baisher's little head. She cannot let this guy directly eat on the streets. Be good, Bailey Hongzhuang stated. Originally, Baisher couldn't wait to pounce out, but after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, he obediently rested his upper body in Bailey Hongzhuang's embrace. However, his watery big eyes were still longing for the colorful demonic beast crystals. Bailey Hongzhuang stopped in front of the vendor stall. The seller was a big man in his 40s. His beard was shrubby and his hair was a mess. He looked like he didn't care about his appearance at all. Aside from the demonic beast crystals, there were also other items being displayed in the booth, but they were in very odd shapes. It was hard to distinguish what exactly they were. Up until now, this was the strangest booth Bailey Hongzhuang had ever came across. Other booths sold weapons-related items. This booth was too random. "Uncle, how much are these demonic beast crystals?" Bailey Hongzhuang inquired. The resting seller slowly opened his eyes as he indolently looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, not selling. The moment he uttered those words, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but feel stunned. If he wasn't selling, then why did he put these items on display? "Oh, you're also here. What a coincidence." Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to ask why the seller wasn't selling, a sharp female voice rang from behind her. Bailey Hongzhuang turned around. As expected, she saw Lin Jiesin behind her. Lin Jiesin was wearing a yellow light muslin long skirt. Her fine black hair was combed into the most fashionable knot. Her looks were above average, but the arrogance that could be felt between her brows lowered her attraction level by quite a bit. Speaking of which, since yesterday, Bailey Hongzhuang already knew Lin Jiesin was hostile towards her, but she wasn't sure of the reason yet. She didn't want to waste time and energy on a woman who only had big boobs, but no brain. "I didn't want to bump into you," Bailey Hongzhuang stated idly. Her pupils faintly revealed her annoyance. Lin Jiesin was stunned for a bit. Then, she began to laugh wordlessly. She didn't believe that Bailey Hongzhuang would really give her no face. "Bailey Hongzhuang, do you know who I am?" Lin Jiesin's face was turning malicious. She proudly raised her chin and stared at Bailey Hongzhuang in an intimidate manner. She wanted her to know how powerful she was. But Bailey Hongzhuang didn't care. "If you really want to speak, I can force myself to listen." Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was apathetic. She didn't have the slightest impression of the name Lin Jiesin. "You're the person who killed Yun Yang's sister, Ji-Man." There was a ruthless glint in Lin Jiesin's eyes. She was friends with Ji-Man. Who would have thought that Ji-Man would forever depart from life on her way home? If it weren't for Lu Jingquan making that solemn vow, she almost wouldn't have believed it. Chapter 290. Bailey Hongzhuang's deep phoenix eyes shone with understanding and contempt. Only now did she understand. So Lin Jiesin is also Dai Yunyang's person. No wonder whenever they met, the other would reveal a deep hostility. Bailey Hongzhuang had already been at the Azure Water School for half a month. She has yet to see Dai Yunyang's person, but lackeys have coming running one after the other. This Dai Yunyang is like an unwanted ghost. Little Black had a look of disgust on its face. If he has the ability, then come in person instead of always sending some useless guys to do his dirty work. Maybe Dai Yunyang likes the feeling of sending people over and over again before making his grand appearance. Little White thoughtfully said as he rubbed his round chin. Listening to Little Black and Little White's conversation, a smile appeared on Bailey Hongzhuang's lips. So, it's another one of Dai Yunyang's dogs. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were sharp and her voice filled with ridicule. If Dai Yunyang wants to find trouble, then let him do so himself. I don't have the time to spare for those small fries. Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't polite. First, it was Dai Jimon who came to find trouble for herself. Now, Dai Yunyang also came to find trouble on his own accord. She and the Dai family really aren't compatible. However, always getting Lu Jingquan, this kind of rubbish, to come and provoke her, Bailey Hongzhuang has already lost her patience. Dog, Ling Jiasin said shrilly, eyes glaring with hate at Bailey Hongzhuang. This woman dared to say she was a dog? Bailey Hongzhuang, I'm Yunyang's woman. Ling Jiasin's voice was loud, and her hysterical and borderline crazy appearance attracted the attentions of many practitioners at the city square. Everyone curiously looked over. Apparently, there was another spectacle happening in City Square. Ling Jiasin honestly broke down. She wasn't some lackey that followed behind Yunyang's every step. She was his woman. It was because of this identity that there was almost no one in the school that would dare to offend her. Even if it were the special enrollment students, if they see her, they would still have to give her a little face. This Bailey Hongzhuang was unexpectedly so insolent. Oh, Bailey Hongzhuang lifted her lips slightly, eyes full of surprise and doubt. You are Dai Yunyang's woman? How come I haven't heard that he was already married? After these words were spoken, Ling Jiasin's arrogant face was instantly covered in a layer of cold frost with a faint trace of awkwardness. This was the place that hurt the most in her heart. Although she was willing to be Dai Yunyang's woman, a position that everyone knew about in school, in all this time Dai Yunyang had never brought her to his home. All along, her position was not a legitimate one. With Dai Yunyang's standing and reputation in the school, who would dare to say differently to her face? Unexpectedly, this Bailey Hongzhuang just had to talk about this thing in front of so many people. It was really detestable. We'll get married very soon. Ling Jiasin had a strong expression, voice mixed with unspoken indignance. Oh, it's like that. Bailey Hongzhuang faintly smiled. Well then, I'll congratulate you first. The words were clearly congratulatory, but in Ling Jiasin's ears they were full of sarcasm. She was clear that the reason Dai Yunyang never brought her home was because he never had the thought of marrying her. Even so, she is still willing to be Yunyang's woman. There was no lack of Azure Water School students in the onlooking practitioners. Upon seeing Ling Jiasin and Bailey Hongzhuang starting a conflict with each other, interested looks appeared on their faces. No matter if it's Bailey Hongzhuang or Ling Jiasin, both are famous within the Azure Water School. It was unexpected that they'd end up in conflict with each other. Bailey Hongzhuang killed Dai Jimon? Seriously? According to them, it should be that Bailey Hongzhuang killed Dai Jimon before she enrolled. Actually, why hasn't Dai Jimon enrolled at all this year? But Dai Jimon isn't weak. At that time, Bailey Hongzhuang was a student of the Azure Water School yet. How could she have killed her? Chapter 291, everybody was surprised. As cultivators, killing wasn't strange at all, so what they were shocked about was that Bailey Hongzhuang actually had the strength to kill Dai Jimon. I heard that the first time Teacher Lu and Teacher Fu Hong invited Bailey Hongzhuang to the school, she had actually refused. A man suddenly revealed the news. The matter had already been spread everywhere in the Imperial City, so now even some of the students have already heard of it. Damn, is that really true? So arrogant? Everyone's faces were bewildered as their gazes clouded with doubt. Azure Water School's invitation letter was something all cultivators longed for, but then why would Bailey Hongzhuang actually refuse it? Of course it's true. Do you really think I just pull up some baseless rumors to say? The man's face was calm, but in fact he had only just heard about it and exaggerated it. Wow, I really didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to actually be so awesome. No wonder she could kill Dai Jimon. Bailey Hongzhuang was the first cultivator in history to refuse Azure Water School's invitation letter, so naturally there must have been strength behind that confidence. They knew that Teacher Fu Hong and Teacher Lu really did treat Bailey Hongzhuang well. Acting so kind despite being rejected, it was very clear how important they saw Bailey Honghound. Ling Jiasin felt as if her anger was blocking her throat. Bailey Honghound's mocking words and hidden meaning left her completely speechless. If you want to buy something from this shop, you need to take out something that interests the shopkeeper. Otherwise, all you could do is talk. Ling Jiasin's eyes shined. Since she couldn't beat her in other fields, she had to beat her in this. This booth was famous in Azure Water City Square for its difficulty, and the shopkeeper clearly wasn't lacking money, so the booth was always set here to do business. So far, the amount of students that were able to trade for something from the shop booth could be counted on one's fingers. It was exactly because the shop was so strange that made many Azure Water School students interested in this thing. Exchanging for something here was even something they could be proud of. Many cultivators would usually come to test their luck, but the result was always the same. They failed. Just looking at you, it's obvious you don't have anything special. Just give up. Ling Jiasin's words were filled with provocation. She wanted to trick Bailey Hongzhuang into impulsively trying to trade with the shopkeeper and fail miserably. I won't give up. This is my thing. If you're that free, it'd be better to think of a way to win Dai Yinyan's heart instead. Her deep, black eyes shone brilliantly. How couldn't she know of Ling Jiasin's little plot? Ling Jiasin's face turned stiff. Bailey Hongzhuang just had to hit her sore spot. Oh, so you don't have the guts. Bailey Hongzhuang crossed her hands and examined Ling Jiasin. Do you want to make a bet? What kind of bet? If I fail, then I'll give you 100,000 gold coins and 50 demonic beast crystals and vice versa. Do you dare? Her soft, indolent voice was mocking as she asked Ling Jiasin if she dared to make the gamble. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her chin as she looked at Ling Jiasin thoughtfully. It really would be a waste to not wreck this woman. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't have the leisure of wasting time with Ling Jiasin. Since she came to find trouble with her, she should pay the price. Hearing the stakes, Ling Jiasin couldn't help but be started. Chapter 292, 100,000 gold coins, 50 demonic beast crystals. This wasn't a small amount. Even to her, this was a large figure. Everyone who heard the bet gasped. Either one was not a price many cultivators could afford, yet Bailey Hongzhuang actually used both as a bet. Having this kind of confidence, it really gives people a jolt to the heart. Change to whatever will be used in the previous chapter. They knew how bizarre this stall owner's temper was. Ordinary things wouldn't enter his eyes at all. Is Bailey Hongzhuang really so confident, or is it in order to swindle Ling Jiasin? No matter which possibility, they can tell that Bailey Hongzhuang is a wealthy person. Ling Jiasin just stood there, her pretty face showing awkwardness and hesitation. In this matter, she was the one who started provoking Bailey Hongzhuang. In front of all these cultivators, if she didn't reply, then wouldn't that be too humiliating? Ling Jiasin's eyes stared at Bailey Hongzhuang's face, trying to look at her face for some clues. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's face was still cool and indifferent, a faint smile on her lips. It wasn't possible to see her inner thoughts. What? You don't have the guts to? Bailey Hongzhuang returned the same sentence word for word to Ling Jiasin, making it even more ironic. A feeling of faint contempt came from the crowd. Amongst cultivators, there were more than a few times that disagreements resulted in being slapped in the face. However, something like giving the other a taste of his own medicine, giving him a hard slap in the blink of an eye, was still rarely seen. This Bailey Hongzhuang has quite the personality. It's really bad luck that Ling Jiasin went to her to look for trouble. Haha, I never thought that this Bailey Hongzhuang would have such a personality. I heard that she detoxified the heavily injured Chui Haoyin yesterday. And that was a toxin even the vice principal was at wit's end with. I've also heard that she isn't just talented in cultivation. Her medical skill are also outstanding. The Azure Water School students have always paid close attention to the special enrollment students. The matter of Chui Haoyin and Bai Junyu's serious injuries had spread throughout the school the moment they returned. Naturally, the news of detoxifying the poison had also quickly spread out. It was only then that everyone knew that the new beauty of the special enrollment students was actually a highly skilled doctor. Hearing the sounds of harsh sneers, Ling Jiaxin's eyes showed a hint of anger. It was very possible that Bailey Hongzhuang was deliberately scaring her. If she really agreed, then Bailey Hongzhuang would be the one dumbfounded. She not so stupid as to let Bailey Hongzhuang jerk her around and around. Thinking of this, Ling Jiaxin smiled sarcastically. I'll take that bet. Other than 100,000 gold coins, there were also an additional 50 demonic crystals. Once these have fallen into her hands, she would have a lot more cultivation resources. Wow! More and more cultivators were coming to watch the excitement. Even the stall owners in City Square, who weren't doing any business, came over. There's something exciting to see again. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrow, a bewitching smile on her face. That's settled then. Don't worry, we will bear witness. Amongst the crowd, a loud male voice burst out. Then following that, everyone started patting their chests. Yes, we will bear witness. Bailey Hongzhuang then walked in front of the stall owner, who was originally resting, but under the attention of so many people opened his eyes. Stall owner, I wonder what kind of things you're interested in, Bailey Hongzhuang asked. At least she had to know the stall owner's area of interest before deciding what to trade with. Pills, weapons, armor, equipment, nothing is off limits. However, I only want things relating to cultivation. Chapter 293, a light flashed through her gleaming dark phoenix eyes. The area of interest wasn't small. For what it looks like, it should be that the stall owner's standards are very high. Ling Jiaxin was silent, only looking at Bailey Hongzhuang mockingly. She'd like to see what exactly Bailey Hongzhuang would bring out to get the stall owner's interest. Bailey Hongzhuang eyed the stall owner, suddenly noticing that the blue veins on his hands were protruding out like a dragon bellowing in rage. It was sinister and terrifying. Her lips curved into a bewitching smile, full of confidence. She already had an idea. The next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang directly took a white porcelain bottle from the primordial chaos ring and showed it to the stall owner. I believe you'd be interested in this. Her voice was clear and melodious, full of confidence and assurance. If she guessed correctly, what the stall owner lacks is exactly this channel opening pill. Channel opening pill, grade 2 pill, used to widen the meridians. The wider the meridians, the stronger the available flow of spirit power. To cultivators, this greatly helps with enhancing their strength. However, meridians themselves weren't really wide. Cultivators with the qualifications could just use a channel opening pill to widen their meridian. On the other hand, those without qualifications could only attempt to use their own strength to widen their meridians little by little. This process was very difficult, and one had to be very cautious when doing it. Once too much force was used, you'd end up in the same situation as the stall owner. I'm afraid that the stall owner hasn't been able to cultivate for a while now. However, there was something strange. Since the stall owner had so many demonic cores, he shouldn't be a poor person. Why doesn't he just buy a grade 2 channel opening pill? Seeing how confident Bailey Hongzhuang was, the stall owner couldn't help but have a trace of doubt in his deep and indifferent eyes. After taking the bottle and opening it, his face suddenly stiffened. The stall owner's eyes were rigidly fixed on the pill. The unique fragrance emitting from the pill clearly told him that this was a channel opening pill. He was not an alchemist and had no understanding towards pills whatsoever. He only recognized one kind of pill, channel opening pill. In the past, he wasn't careful and inadvertently damaged his meridians. He experienced innumerable hardships to find an alchemist who could treat him. The alchemist told him that only the channel opening pill would be able to heal his injury. However, the pill formula for the channel opening pill had already been lost to time. At first, he hasn't believed him, but after looking everywhere, he found that the alchemist was telling the truth. Unable to continue cultivating and his cultivation coming to a stop, he opened a stall hoping that one day he'd find a channel opening pill. After so many years, he had almost lost all hope. But now, right in front of his eyes, that pill is definitely a channel-opening pill. Ling Jiasin and the others looked questioningly at the stall owner, only seeing that the hand that held the white porcelain bottle was shaking and the stall owner seemed to be in his own world. What in the world did Bailey Hongzhuang give to the stall owner to have him show such an expression? Ling Jiasin furrowed her eyebrows. At this moment, she actually had a bad feeling. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved up slightly. From the stall owner's expression, she already determined that her judgment wasn't wrong. It was only after a long while that the stall owner turned his gaze onto Bailey Hongzhuang. His eyes were bloodshot. This is a channel-opening pill. His red eyes were restrained and filled with nervousness. His face was firm and calm. However, his trembling hands showed the fear in his heart. He was afraid that she would crush his hope again. When Ling Jiasin heard the words channel-opening pill, she couldn't help but laugh. Ha ha. Stall owner, I think you're confused. The formula for the channel-opening pill had been lost long ago. There is no way that there is a channel-opening pill in this world. Chapter 294, even if she was an alchemist, she still understood that the pill formula for the channel-opening pill had long been lost in the annals of history. It was ridiculous that the stall owner actually said such unsupported words. Shut up, the stall owner roared. His eyes reddened like an angry leopard, and didn't give Ling Jiasin any room to speak at all. Ling Jiasin was frightened by the stall owner's roar. She didn't understand why he was so angry. However, the stall owner no longer paid attention to her. His eyes once again gazed upon Bailey Hongzhuang, wanting to know her final answer. That's correct. Her voice, as crisp as the wind, was like the sound of nature to the stall owner's ears. It immersed him in a feeling of incredible happiness. The stall owner looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and then at the perfectly round, high-quality pill. His heart was full of indescribable excitement. 10 years. A whole 10 years. He had not cultivated for a whole 10 years just to search for a trace of this impossibility. However, after 10 years, his patience actually paid off. The stall owner reached out with one hand and grabbed Bailey Hongzhuang's arm. Is what you're saying the truth? This is really the channel-opening pill? A flash of doubt crossed the deep phoenix eyes before becoming clear again. 1,000 years ago, the channel-opening pill wasn't some rare pill. Like the cultivating yuan pill, both were similarly common. From a stall owner's reaction, she determined a fact. In this time, the channel-opening pill had already been lost. Otherwise, the stall owner wouldn't be so worked up. A burst of pain came from the bones in her right hand, but Bailey Hongzhuang could understand the stall owner's excitement. At this point, the pressure on her hand disappeared. A figure suddenly appeared by her side and pulled the stall owner's hand off her arm. Her phoenix eyes slightly turned. Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised to see the figure in black by her side. Gong Xiaoqing. Gong Xiaoqing was dressed in black robes as usual. His handsome, straight, and tall posture was like a cypress, morally upright and lofty. Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly surprised. She didn't think that Gong Xiaoqing would show up here and did not think that he would actually do this. Seeing Gong Xiaoqing appear, everyone sighed in their hearts. As the Azure Water School's top student, his strength and talent were not just talk. Ling Jiasin glared at Bailey Hongzhuang. In the Azure Water School, Gong Xiaoqing was notorious for being unapproachable. Yet he actually stood out to help Bailey Hongzhuang just now. It should be known that Gong Xiaoqing's name was synonymous with cold-bloodedness and brutality. If you weren't his friend, then even if you died right in front of him, he wouldn't even blink. It had only been a short half-month since Bailey Hongzhuang came to the Azure Water School, and yet she had already been accepted by Gong Xiaoqing. Why did you come here? Bailey Hongzhuang asked with a light smile on her face. Usually, she felt that this guy's icy expression makes people very unhappy. Today, she felt that it was pretty good. Happened to pass by. His voice was as cold as always. But with Gong Xiaoqing's temperament, it was not bad that he could explain this much. Bailey Hongzhuang turned towards the stall owner and said, "It really is the channel opening pill. If you don't believe me, it can be appraised. The stall owner scrutinizingly looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and said, I believe you. Over the years, he had looked through ancient books. In them, the appearance of the channel opening pill was recorded. Moreover, as an Azure Water School student, Bailey Hongzhuang had no need to deceive him. Even if she deceived him, he could go to the Azure Water School to find her. Her elegantly perfect smile was framed by her elegant and refined appearance. Then, you want to do business with me? Yes, yes, yes. The stall owner continuously nodded. I will give you everything in this stall. Chapter 295. Once he said their words, everyone's jaws dropped. No way. This stall had so many demonic cores as well as other stuff. Unexpectedly, it all went to Bailey Hongzhuang in this fashion. Bailey Hongzhuang was bursting with laughter. This move from the stall owner didn't surprise her much. After all, he hadn't been able to cultivate for quite a while. In his heart, the value of the channel opening pill was much higher than anything he owns. Ling Jiasin was completely dumbfounded. This is Bailey Hongzhuang trying to hoodwink us, right? Channel opening pill? Who knows how long ago it was lost? How could she possess it? If you want to swindle someone, you should at least do so with a more convincing reasoning, right? Yet the stall owner actually believed it. Stall owner, this channel opening pill must be a fake. Don't be fooled, Ling Jiasin quickly said. What a joke. It was fine if the stall owner was deceived, but what about her 100,000 gold coins and 50 demonic crystals? The stall owner gave Ling Jiasin a dirty look. Isn't this person able to see others happy at all? I'm willing to be deceived. It's none of your damn business. As his voice faded, the stall owner shot Ling Jiasin a look of scorn. Holding onto the white porcelain bottle, he left the city square, eager to test out the effect of this channel opening pill. All this was way too dramatic. No one knew how to react. Other cultivators even wanted to ask, was this stall owner a shill brought here by Bailey Hongzhuang? The pill formula for the channel opening pill had already been lost for so many years. How could Bailey Hongzhuang have it? It's ridiculous. What you're saying is wrong. The vibrating needle technique was also lost many years ago. Yet, Bailey Hongzhuang knows it as well. Hearing these words, everyone froze and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with eyes streaked with fright. How did these long-lost things appear in her hands? Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang is a cultivator born from a powerful and influential family? Ling Jiasin's face paled. No matter how one looked at it, she should have won the bet. Yet she actually lost? 100,000 gold coins, 50 demonic cores. Where is she going to acquire all this? Bailey Hongzhuang casually glanced at Ling Jiasin. Our bet, remember to pay up in 3 days. With so many people here, you wouldn't renege on it, right? However, the casually spoken words were akin to a mountain pressing down on Ling Jiasin's heart. If she reneged on the bet, then afterwards how would she be able to survive in the Azure Water School? With me here, she wouldn't dare to renege. Gong Shaoqing suddenly said in his indifferent voice, as if the outcome was already decided. Ling Jiasin paled even more. Damn him! How did she not know that Gong Shaoqing liked to help people so much? Everyone's eyes were filled with interest. Such a large amount. Ling Jiasin is really unlucky. Bailey Hongzhuang methodically put everything from the stall into her yin-yang pouch. With so many demonic core, it was enough to feed Baisher for quite a while. Speaking of which, a single rank 2 pill was exchanged for so many demonic cores. It was a really good deal. The sun shined on Bailey Hongzhuang and Gong Shaoqing, causing 2 shadows to stretch out from their bodies, looking especially harmonious. That channel opening pill, it's real. One could not tell Gong Shaoqing's thoughts from his cold face. He was really astonished. The channel opening pill was a pill that many cultivators needed. Only, it had already disappeared 200 years ago. Every time Lu Qinghua talked about this matter, she couldn't help but sigh. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang bring out a channel opening pill today, he was really shocked. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips lifted slightly, clear and beautiful eyes were mocking and teasing, and answered with a question, "What do you think?" Support me on Patreon for early chapter access. Chapter 296. Gong Xiaoqing's deep black eyes stared at Bailey Hongzhuang. An unclear emotion surged in them, and yet he did not say a word. Sure enough, this guy was best at playing the cold-blooded card. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged helplessly. "Fine, I'll tell you. It's real." Gong Xiaoqing narrowed his eyes. He felt a faint feeling of shock in his heart, yet did not show a bit of emotion on his face, and walked towards the school with steady steps. Bailey Hongzhuang was really extraordinary. Whether it's the vibrating needle technique or the long-lost channel opening pill, both unexpectedly appeared in her hands. This is enough to prove that her origins are not common. Exactly who is she? For the first time in his life, Gong Xiaoqing felt curiosity in his heart. When the students saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Gong Xiaoqing walking side by side, an astounded look appeared on each and every one of their youthful faces. It had always been the case that other than Lu Qinyue, there were no other women who could walk together with Gong Xiaoqing. They didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang could also walk together with him. Everyone's gazes kept changing every second. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang had only arrived at the school for a short time, she gave them a very big shock. Feeling everyone's surprised eyes on her, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows twitched. How did the news from the city square spread back here so quickly? When she returned to the dormitory, she discovered Zhang Yunfeng waiting outside her house. With clear and bright eyes holding a trace of clarity, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood the reason Zhang Yunfeng came. "Bailey Hongzhuang," Zhang Yunfeng slowly said. Thank you for saving Haoyan. I was rude yesterday. I apologize for that and hope you can forgive me." Zhang Yunfeng's beautiful face was apologetic and full of gratitude. Her words were sincere as she recalled the rude words she said to Bailey Hongzhuang yesterday. She felt like dying from the shame. Under that kind of situation, Bailey Hongzhuang still saved Shui Haoyan. She was incredibly grateful for that. "I understand your feelings, don't worry about it." Bailey Hongzhuang's smile showed forgiveness and understanding. As a physician, she had met quite a few family members. However, she wouldn't lend a hand to help cure ordinary people at all. There was not much affection between her and Shui Haoyan. The vast portion of that reason was because of Dongfang Yu. Zhang Yunfeng was touched. Bailey Hongzhuang was unexpectedly so magnanimous. Compared to her, she was really too narrow-minded. "Hongzhuang, thank you. In the future, if there's a need for me and Haoyan, just to say a word and we would definitely be there." Zhang Yunfeng's eyes flashed with a sense of steadiness. Kindness should be paid back. In the future, Bailey Hongzhuang's business is her business. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile was gentle. Senior sister doesn't have to worry about it. You should take good care of senior brother Chui instead. Zhang Yunfeng nodded her head and bowed deeply. "This time, I'm really thankful to you." Inside the house, Bailey Hongzhuang put the demonic cores on her bed. Baishur had already happily jumped onto the bed, his furry body lying on top of the demonic cores with a bright smile on his face. His paws grabbed a demonic core, chomped on it. His entire face was filled with an air of happiness. Bailey Hongzhuang touched Baishur's little head. Demonic cores were really hard, so this little guy's teeth were quite sharp. "This Zhang Yunfeng doesn't seem that bad. Not as loathsome as she was yesterday," Little White said as it preened itself. At least she knows to show gratitude." Little Black coldly grunted. The fact that its master would lend a hand was already a big favor. Yet they are actually still talking so inconsiderately. Bailey Hongzhuang single-handedly lifted a fur ball. "There's no need to stick up for me. I've just arrived at the Azure Water School. There's no harm in buying people off and being kind to them. Support me on Patreon for early chapter access." Chapter 297, with Chui Haoyan and Zhang Yunfeng's positions, having them owe her a debt of gratitude, really wasn't a bad deal. Haha, I just knew Master wouldn't do anything that would cause her a loss. Little Black smugly raised its eyebrows. Just as Gong Xiaoqing returned to his house, Dongfang Yu came and knocked on the door. Gong Xiaoqing. Today, I heard some news about Bailey Hongzhuang from the cultivators that came from Feng Bo Country's Imperial City. It's really too inconceivable. Do you want to know? Dongfang Yu peach blossom eyes blinked as he smiled at Gong Xiaoqing. Gong Xiaoqing lazily glanced as Dongfang Yu. If you want to say it, then say it. Dongfang Yu's lips widened. With Gong Xiaoqing's disposition, if he didn't completely refuse it, then he actually wanted to know. We all used to think that Bailey Hongzhuang was a general's daughter. Then I learned that she was bullied at the general's household. In the past, it was widely spread throughout the entire imperial city that she was a waste. Until this year, that is. Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly soared and bloomed radiantly. She not only took first place in the royal hunting competition, but also made a name for herself as a genius doctor in the imperial city. After comprehending all this, the shocked Dongfang Yu felt couldn't possibly get any higher. It was only then that he understood why Bailey Hongzhuang had that reaction when he said she was a pampered young lady. With a childhood of being bullied and made fun of in her childhood, how would she have lived a life of luxury? It wouldn't even hold a candle to the life of commoners. Gong Xiaoqing's expression also held a trace of shock. With her bearing now, they couldn't at all see how she could have experienced that kind of past. So, it's to say that all the changes Bailey Hongzhuang went through happened within this year. Dongfang Yu nodded slightly. That's right. No matter if it's opening Godly Doctor Square or revealing her abilities, it all happened within this 1 year. In my opinion, Bailey Hongzhuang must have hidden her true abilities for many years to be able to utterly reveal her true strength this year. What incredible restraint. That gentle and handsome face showed shock and lament. If it were ordinary people, they would have been long overwhelmed by this kind of environment, let alone hiding all their strength to just be able to reveal it to the world one day. Over 10 years of living and enduring the humiliation in exchange for a slap in everyone's face. This kind of disposition was simply terrifying. All along, he felt that Gong Xiaoqing's disposition towards calmly cultivating was scary. But after knowing about Bailey Hongzhuang's experiences, he just felt that the most incredible one was Bailey Hongzhuang. Adversity encourages growth, and Bailey Hongzhuang almost completely had her back to the wall. If that's really the case, then Bailey Hongzhuang is very frightening. Gong Xiaoqing used the word frightening because without personally experiencing it, there was no way to understand the kind of pain that comes from struggling under that kind of environment. He was only afraid that, in the past, Bailey Hongzhuang's growth was only motivated by her hatred towards the people of the general's household. However, in the present, they didn't feel this from Bailey Hongzhuang. It could be seen that her thoughts were profound, frightening. Dongfang Yu's long eyebrows slanted, his pink peach blossom eyes shined with a mesmerizing light. I don't think so. As a cultivator, the most important thing is persistence and restraint. Gong Xiaoqing never denied that. With this kind of special quality, one could only imagine Bailey Hongzhuang's future. Forget about cultivation, this kind of medical skill shouldn't be due to Bailey Hongzhuang's efforts alone. It's simply not possible. Gong Xiaoqing's voice deepened slightly. It should be that she has a strong master. I also think the same. Perhaps it was that master that cured Bailey Hongzhuang. Dongfang Yu's bright eyes flashed. After knowing all this, he instead felt a bit of pity towards Bailey Hongzhuang. That stubborn girl brimmed with pride and arrogance from head to toe, but she made his heart feel pained and worried. Hey, in the future, don't call Bailey Hongzhuang stupid, or I won't let you off. Dongfang Yu hit Gong Xiaoqing's chest with his fist. Then he put his hands behind his head and walked back to his own room with dignity. Gong Xiaoqing's expression changed in an instant. Dongfang Yu seemed to be a bit strange. As she had completed the mercenary mission of the armored rhinoceros, Bailey Hongzhuang had received 100 points. The academy had many things going on at this time, but they had no way to complete the mission in such a short period of time. She might as well go cultivate at the pagoda and see how that went. As the most attractive cultivating spot in Azure Water School, it definitely had its reasons for becoming so famed. She didn't know how much 100 points were either, so she might as well go check it out. The Cultivation Pagoda was the tallest building in Azure Water School, with 21 floors. Even if one was outside of Azure Water School, one could see the Cultivation Pagoda in just a glance. The Cultivation Pagoda was entirely black, understated and dull. The special material on it prominently penetrated slightly like colored glass. Even if the sunlight shone on it, the building would not reflect any light. It was just like an immense attracting magnet by thoroughly absorbing everything around it. Just looking at the outside, one would feel an unordinary aura. In the second when she walked into the Cultivation Pagoda, Bailey Hongzhuang could clearly feel a vague presence scanning her. It could be assumed that this was to determine if she was a student from the Azure Water School. Standing on the first floor, Bailey Hongzhuang felt the exceptionally strong spirit power. These powers and everything else all surged into her internal body. Emotions flashed in her pitch-black, glittering pupils. No wonder the cultivators in the Cultivating Pagoda of Azure Water School cultivated so much faster than other cultivators. She didn't know how much faster the cultivating speed could be here versus how fast she had cultivated in the past. Upon sweeping her gaze over the area, Bailey Hongzhuang discovered that this building had 8 extremely spacious and empty rooms. Every stone room scope was pretty big. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang noticed a board that was hung next to the entrance. It clearly explained all the necessary costs of points for each floor. First floor, 100 points per day. Second floor, 95 points per day. Third floor, 90 points per day. The higher the floor was, the less points it required. Because all the power had assembled underground, the lower the floor, the better the effect it had on cultivation. Bailey Hongzhuang possessed 100 points, but to cultivate in one floor, she would actually only have enough to cultivate for a day. Though this cultivation pagoda produces extremely good results, it needs 10 times the points. If I were to cultivate on this floor, how many missions would I have to complete? Bailey Hongzhuang was secretly speechless. She had accompanied Gong Shaoqing and the others to complete this mission, and this mission hadn't been that low either. Among the 4 people, everyone could only get 100 points. It could only be feared that the other students in Azure Water School were making even less points. It turned out that everyone had been saving them up. As it turned out, points were the most important thing to an Azure Water School student. "Master, this place is too great," Little Black and Little White excitedly said. After they had been infused with so much strength, it had been extremely helpful to both of their cultivations. "Let's first walk up and find a good place where we can cultivate." Her delicate and extremely beautiful face drew into a witty smile. The others could only cultivate one by one, but she could bring Little Black and Little White, as well as Baishur, and come cultivate together. When added all up, spending these points was extremely worth it. Though this type of strength was becoming a rarity, it was much more fulfilling when compared to the usual cultivation practices. Although points were used up very quickly here, Bailey Honghound found that the rooms were all still filled with cultivators, with even more waiting outside for the other cultivators to leave. The door plate outside the stone room showed the cultivators inside and how long they would cultivate, making it very convenient for everybody to find a room. Bailey Hongzhuang went to the 11th floor. Here, she only had enough points to cultivate for 2 days. Even if she went up another floor, unless she went up to the 15th floor, she only had enough points to rest for 2 days. The 11th floor also had 8 rooms, but they were a lot more narrow than the first floor. Bailey Honghound discovered that every floor had exactly 8 stone rooms, but the rooms grew smaller with every passing floor. On the 11th floor, it could only fit about 3 people. At the 20th floor, the rooms would probably only be able to fit 1 person. Bailey Hongzhuang noted that one of the stone rooms would be free in 2 hours and directly sat outside the room to wait. Sitting on the floor, Bailey Honghang started to cultivate. There was a lot of benefits, and cultivating outside was just as good as cultivating inside the rooms. But the rules were that you could only stay in the hall if you were waiting for a room, otherwise your points would be deducted. With such a punishment, all the students obediently followed the rules. After all, Azure Water School's prestige couldn't be violated so easily. 2 hours passed in a flash. A little pop could be heard as the door opened. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. It was finally her turn. A green-robed man opened the door. He looked at Bailey Honghang, startled, before preparing to leave. At that moment, a familiar and untimely voice suddenly rang. "Chen Tianzheng, just in time. Since you're done cultivating, pass the room to me." Pang Yunxiang just arrived at the 11th floor and saw Bailey Hongzhuang. After being publicly humiliated in front of everybody at the mercenary trade union, his hatred only grew stronger. Truly, they were enemies on a narrow road. Chen Tianzheng was his good brother, so as long as he opened his mouth, the room would definitely be his. Although 50 points for a day really was quite expensive, if it could make Bailey Hongzhuang furious, he would be happy to pay. Chen Tianzheng naturally knew what Pang Yunxiang and smiled. "Sure, I'm just about done. You can go in." Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. She didn't expect that Pang Yunxiang would still have the guts to find trouble with her. Just as Pang Yunxiang was about to enter the stone room, Bailey Hongzhuang blocked his way, her red lips gently opening. Everybody needs to wait their turn. Hearing this, Pang Yunxiang and Chen Tianzheng both broke out laughing. "Bailey Hongzhuang, there's only the three of us here. If the two of us say something's the truth, it's the truth. What do you do about it?" Pang Yunxiang's eyes flicked with malice. Because of this woman, he had lost so much face. Everything was because of Bailey Honghang. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were indifferent and ruthless. "I said, this room is mine." Her cold, clear voice was laced with a threat. She glanced at Pang Yunxiang and Chen Tianzheng coldly, her gaze as sharp as a knife. This was already her warning. Pang Yunxiang sneered. "Bailey Hongzhuang, don't think you're so amazing just because you have a little bit of strength. We aren't scared of you." He admitted that he wasn't Bailey Hongzhuang's opponent, but if they teamed up, Bailey Hongzhuang will definitely lose. "Bailey Hongzhuang, you should have thought of the consequences when you bully my brothers." Chen Tianjing's voice was cold. Chapter 300. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into an enchanting smile. Her bewitchingly beautiful face exuded a charm that fascinated all living beings up one way and down the other. Yet her phoenix eyes were like a poisonous snake, flashing with vicious and tyrannical light. She, Bailey Hongzhuang, did not like to casually speak out, so she was thought of as being easy to bully. You have to know, she was never someone who had a good temper. Bang! Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly punched a fist towards Pang Yunxiang. A surge of spiritual energy exploded from her fist and directly sent Pang Yunxiang's body flying for more than 10 meters. Although Pang Yunxiang was also at the mysterious Ian middle stage, Bailey Hongzhuang had never put him in her eyes. The sudden and unforeseen event was completely out of Chen Tianjing's expectations. Pang Yunxiang didn't even have time to react when Bailey Hongzhuang had taken action. "I'm exactly bullying your brother. What are you going to do about it?" The eyes that clearly differentiated between right and wrong flashed with a dazzlingly brilliant light. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her chin slightly, her attitude arrogant and haughty. Chen Tianjing's eyes were ablaze with anger. Today, he originally wanted to help Pang Yunxiang get back at Bailey Hongzhuang. He didn't think that right after finishing his words, Pang Yunxiang would be beat up once again. He felt that this fist didn't hit Pang Yunxiang's body, but landed on his face instead. "Bailey Hongzhuang, you're a special enrollment student. I will admit that your ability and talent aren't bad. However, I'm at the mysterious Ian late stage. Even if he wasn't a special enrollment student, he had more time to cultivate than Bailey Hongzhuang. His strength was also above hers. Perhaps a year later, he might not be able to be her opponent. However, the current Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't his opponent. Mysterious Ian late stage. Bailey Hongzhuang's face showed shock and faintly looked scared. The next moment, however, she made a 180-degree change. Is that very amazing? Chen Tianjing's eyes were full of anger. This Bailey Hongzhuang was really too detestable. Her casually disregarding words were full of sarcasm and insult. You're seeking death. Chen Tianjing gnashed his teeth. The spiritual energy inside his body instantly burst out. If he didn't teach Bailey Hongzhuang a lesson, then her arrogance would know no bounds. Beat him up. Little Black angrily waved his fist around. This kind of eyesore should be stomped to death with a single foot. Bailey Hongzhuang's right hand bounced a bit, sending Little Black and Little White jumping straight out. Bang! Bang! Two small sounds were heard as Little Black and Little White directly hit Chen Tianjing's eyes. Chen Tianjing gave a cry of sorrow, feeling severe pain in his eyes. The spiritual energy that had half gathered was utterly diffused. Bailey Hongzhuang kicked Chen Tianjing's stomach with her foot and also sent him flying back for tens of meters. Pang Yunxiang had just clutched his very painful stomach and stood up when he saw Chen Tianjing flying at him like a flash of lightning. Another cry of sorrow came out as Pang Yunxiang was crushed heavily under Chen Tianjing's body. Pang Yunxiang had a thin body, while Chen Tianjing was a real fatty. The moment Chen Tianjing fell on top of him, he spat out a mouthful of blood as he was crushed half to death. Chen Tianjing, hurry and get up. Pang Yunxiang cried out. If he continued to be crushed like this, he really would lose his life. I'll get up immediately. Chen Tianjing continuously nodded, angrily staring at Bailey Hongzhuang. You actually used hidden weapons. Under Little Black and Little White's attack, Chen Tianjing's eyes swelled and became like a panda's. He forcefully opened a tiny gap in his eyes, but simply couldn't make out the situation in front of him. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked in front of the two. Just when Chen Tianjing started to get up, and the moment Pang Yunxiang was released, Bailey Hongzhuang fiercely stomped on Chen Tianjing's body with her foot. Chapter 3: A One Bang. Both of their bodies once again went crashing to the floor. Pang Yunxiang spat out another mouthful of foaming blood, face already deathly pale. You too. In the future, if you see me, you better walk the other way. Or else next time, I will have you both completely disappear from this world. Her apathetic voice was filled with killing intent. Pang Yunxiang and Chen Tianjing suddenly felt frozen. This killing intent sent chills down their spines. After those words, Bailey Hongzhuang no longer paid any attention to them. She inserted her point card into the card slot and closed the door. The spiritual energy inside the stone chamber was more abundant and pure than outside. Bailey Hongzhuang took a deep breath. This kind of place was really the best for cultivating. Little Black, Little White, and Baisher each chose a space. Like that, one person in 3B started to cultivate at the cultivation pagoda. After taking the channel opening pill, the stall owner's original situation of not being able to cultivate had improved. He became more and more certain that this was the real deal. There were quite a few people in the city square that understood the stall owner's situation. In knowing that the stall owner was already able to immediately go into cultivating, they were all scared to the heavens. The long-lost channel opening pill had appeared again. This news was like the wind, spreading swiftly throughout the entire Azure Water City. Before, quite a few cultivators had witnessed Bailey Hongzhuang using the channel opening pill to make a deal with the stall owner. And now they were talking about this matter even more exaggeratedly. Channel opening pill. This was a pill that many cultivators needed. As long as they were able to broaden their meridians, their cultivation speed would greatly rise. At the same time, it would be more favorable that they would be able to walk further on their road of cultivation. A huge commotion arose in Azure Water City. Many cultivators wanted to find Bailey Hongzhuang to understand the real situation. At best, they would be able to think of a way to get a channel opening pill. That would be really great. Some cultivators knew that the reason Bailey Hongzhuang made a deal with the stall owner was for the demonic beast crystals. Even though they didn't know why she wanted them, they all began to gather them. As long as they had a sufficient amount of demonic beast crystals, they believed that there was a large possibility to be able to trade for a channel opening pill. That was a pill that had been lost long ago. As long as they had it, and other cultivators didn't, their cultivation speed would undoubtedly be much stronger by a large margin when compared to other cultivators. Though the value of the demonic crystals aren't low, they were of no real use to them. How would they compare to the importance of the channel opening pill? Just as everyone started looking for Bailey Hongzhuang, they discovered that she had disappeared. There was no trace of her at the dormitory. Dongfang Yu and the others were already struck with amazement after knowing all this. Now, countless cultivators hovered outside the dormitory of the special enrollment students every day. Suffice to say that once Bailey Hongzhuang appears, they had no doubt that these cultivators would immediately swarm her. She would be completely surrounded. How would Bailey Hongzhuang have channel opening pills? Doubt flashed across Dongfang Yu's handsome eyes. Her deeds always caused people to be astonished. Lu Qingyue twitched her eyebrows, gentle and pretty face holding a sense of contemplation. Bailey Hongzhuang. Is she also an alchemist? Probably not. Dongfang Yu rubbed his chin. That girl was already a godly doctor that mastered the vibrating needle technique. If she was also an alchemist, what sort of concentration did she have? Cultivation. Medical skills, refining skills, no matter which of the three, each one required a huge amount of concentration as well as time. For Bailey Hongzhuang to be able to cultivate her spiritual energy and develop her medical skills to this level, it already made others feel ashamed. If she knew all three, they might as well have fed their youth to the dogs. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.